Cinemoddities, late night movies with Rob and Zack. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally these projects gel. Most times they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Zack.
And I'm Rob, and this week on Cinemoddities, I want to start with a question. It's a question I've asked before, not on this podcast, I don't think to Zack, but it's a question that I always ask when I see it at the start of a movie. Zack, what the fuck is a McG? What is this? What is this? Is this really a person, or is this like a Hollywood entity that just produces films? Like, what is a McG? Can you enlighten me, please?
McG is a person who I think people hate him, and even when he was making Terminator Salvation, people hated him.
Name. I hate his name a lot.
I know there's an interview somewhere with him that I read. I think, I might have it right here with me. Okay, I have to look for it. I know there's an interview with him in Entertainment Weekly talking about Terminator Salvation. Oh man, I have it right here. I know this giant pile of Entertainment Weeklies I have on my floor has been paying off for the last how many months. And I know he's interviewed and he's like, oh, people think I have a stupid name. But I'm more than just a stupid name. I have to find it now. I'm going through it.
I'm more than just a stupid name. I'm a stupid director.
All right.
I have to say, go for it.
This is from the May 2009 Entertainment Weekly with Christian Bale on the cover. And it says, Terminator is back. And then parenthetical, it says, what don't you effing understand? And then it says, Christian Bale on playing John Connor, his most intense roles in that on-set rant, which we all know Rob will get to in good time.
Of course.
Oh, God. Okay. So it said... At one point in this article, he talks about how it says, and I'm quote, then McG made his final Hail Mary gambit. He pleaded with Bale to take a chance on him.
Oh my God.
The director pleaded with Christian Bale to be in the movie. All right, here it is. Okay, I found the quote. Bale recalls, quote, I had this guy sitting there saying, Christian, didn't somebody ever take a leap of faith on you to do something radically different than you've ever done before? Give me that opportunity. So I'm thinking, blank. Bale's advisors were against it too. Not just because Terminator Salvation was a sequel to a sequel to a sequel, but also because of McG himself, a man with little more to his credit than The OC, a couple of Charlie's Angel movies, and a ridiculous name. That's
wonderful.
That's in the article. Okay, I know. You know what? I've had this Entertainment Weekly for over a decade. I was thinking about throwing it out in the last couple of months, and I'm so glad I didn't just for that reason.
The hoarding pays off.
It does. So yes, Rob, that is your answer. McG is considered a hack. I think he was then. He's certainly considered one now. And I think that's it. I think that's all that has to be. At least that's all I have to say about McG.
Okay. So in all fairness, I do have to say I have heard of him before. I looked it up, as I was writing my notes for this movie, that I saw he directed the 2000s Charlie's Angel movies. So what's that? Cameron Diaz, right? And Drew Barrymore and okay.
Lucy Liu and Bill Murray, who turns into Bernie Mac.
Oh, yes. Okay. I also noticed that he directed The Babysitter, which was a Netflix movie someone recommended to me years ago. And I watched it and I hated it. Like a major plot point is literally the existence of Mad Men. Like that movie does not work if Mad Men does not exist. It's terrible. I guess now that important question is out of the way, what the fuck is a McG? He's the director of this movie. But I want to take it back a little bit because, as I think we've alluded to in previous episodes during this month, this Terminator series, we have our first double feature on Cinemoddities. We are actually going to be discussing both Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genisys today. And I want to throw it over to Zack now as to why. Why are we combining these two into one? I think I know, but tell our audience.
Goosebumps?
I took the words right out of my mouth.
And because I don't think there's a lot. We talked about Terminator now for 3 weeks. We spent nearly 3 hours by the time Rob gets through editing the Terminator 3 episode, there's a very real possibility that it is 3 hours.
Yep.
So no, I think at this point, part of the reason was Goosebumps. the other part was also how much more can we talk about these movies? As of now, we have 8 hours on the record, and chances are we're going to add another 2 at least.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Cinemoddities, I think, has covered quite a large area when it comes to the Terminator canon.
Yo, yeah, definitely. And I think that's a good call. We could definitely, as it's been proven, we can talk about these movies for a good bit of time. But I also believe that, I think when you originally pitched it to me, Zach, you were interested in combining these two because there's not really much to them on their own. And it's almost worth it to, kind of jam them into one. And I have to agree. These movies are all over the place. I don't even know, like what we were saying last week, where there shouldn't be Terminator 4 or 5. It should be like 3A, 3B, and 3C almost, because this is where it fell apart. Like, I loved the trilogy of what we dedicated those first 3 episodes to, and these movies just don't fit within that. They almost detract from it.
Okay. I don't know how far, because my context for these movies is much shorter than the previous 3. When Terminator Salvation got announced, I don't remember when it got announced, but when I first kind of got wind of it, I think it was in the summer or maybe spring of 2008. It's like, oh, they're making a Terminator 4, and it's gonna have Christian Bale, and I think Bryce Dallas Howard. It's like, oh, Arnold probably won't be in it because he's the governor of California, and I'm like, okay, I'm still on board. It has the word Terminator in the title. I guess I should say also that I was a sophomore in high school at this time. So I'm like, whatever, I'm happy. And I remember in the hype leading up to The Dark Knight, someone being like, oh, there's going to be a Terminator Salvation trailer attached to The Dark Knight. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, I was never a huge Batman person, but I'm like, okay, that's another reason to go and go see The Dark Knight in theaters. And I remember seeing it and being like, okay, cool. But sadly, it got overshadowed by the Watchmen trailer, where Sal and I just pissed ourselves laughing at Night Owl, being like, oh man, we're seeing Batman in the pre-show. Which I think is the exact same joke I made back during the Watchmen episode. But no, I saw that, and then over the course of the next little less than a year, I ate up all the marketing materials they gave me. They had a tie-in video game. I went out and bought that. Wasn't very good, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Bought the Entertainment Weekly, which I'm holding in my hand. And no, I saw it in theaters. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay. I saw the second time in theaters. Brought Sal along. As we all know, Sal was a horrible movie companion. We saw it at the South Hills movie theater.
Nice.
The only appropriate way to see a movie, which is now closed, unfortunately. I'm sorry, shut down. There's a difference between closing and being shut down by the authorities.
Yeah.
And no, I remember anytime you brought Sal to a movie, you had to kind of hold your breath and be like, okay, how's he going to ruin this or complain about it? And he loved it. I remember him walking out of it, and he had really no knowledge of Terminator outside of just it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's kind of the extent of the Terminator Salvation context story. It's I've always enjoyed this movie. I enjoy it. It doesn't have the same sentimental nostalgia that the other 3 have for me.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it, I think it's fun. I think it's very corny at certain spots.
Definitely.
It's not what I would have done if I was making a Terminator film that takes place in the apocalypse or the post Judgment Day. I wouldn't have made this movie, but I'm not going to judge it on that metric. But no, I thoroughly enjoy this. I really, outside of things that I would do differently just because I'm a fan, I have no complaints with this film.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I wouldn't say that I didn't enjoy this. I also wouldn't say that I enjoyed it. To me, it was very just down the road, it existed. I thought some of the stuff in there was really, kind of annoying or dumb to watch. I thought it was all very surface level. That's a good way for me to put it. Watching this movie, they hit all the beats that I felt like these action movies needed to hit, and none of them did anything for me. There's this big reveal that Sam Worthington is a cyborg, and I'm like, I thought we knew that from the beginning. I thought we always knew this. And then there's the twist of the movie is Helena Bonham Carter shows up and goes, everything you thought was good is actually bad. And I'm like, that's the most basic twist ever. The thing that you think was going to work isn't going to work. And I'm like, there's nothing here. I felt it lacked a lot of substance. I'll give it, it's interesting. For a Terminator 4, where do you go? Go to the machine war, absolutely. get that loop to come full circle, like get him to find Kyle Reese, whatever. But I didn't think they did anything quite intriguing with it in my eyes.
What was the thing that we watched? I think it was for Cinemoddities, where it's like, no, good is good. Bad is, that was Thumb Wars, right?
That was Thumb Wars, yeah.
Good is good. Bad is bad. We are good. You are bad.
You'll never get away with this, Black Helmet Man. You are bad. You are bad and we are good. Your badness will be the end of you, and our goodness will be our triumph. Bad is bad. Good is good. Bad, bad, good, bad. Good, good, bad, good, bad, good.
The power is strong in you, as is your silly gibberish.
Good,
Yeah.
bad, good. Good, bad, good, bad, good, good.
Essentially. Well, okay, disclaimer. That I remember reading about this back like before the movie came out, that Helena Bonham Carter was supposed to have a larger like role in this, except like her entire family like died like on an African safari, so she had to like pull out. Like they only shot like a couple days with her. I'm not sure if she came back or it was just like, okay, we have to like make do with what we have of her right now, like what we have in the can. But it was some sort of like family tragedy, and that's why like her thing got like really curtailed, and she's like relegated to like what kind of like a scene and a half.
Yeah, right at the beginning, and then just a hologram at the end. Yeah.
And I think the hologram they probably went to her home and be like, "Hey, can we have like half a day with you? Like
Sure.
you don't have to come to us. We'll come to you." And that's the feeling I get.
Okay.
No, but like, okay, the thing about this movie, and it's funny. Like I was telling Rob beforehand, like there's been some conversations about the Terminator franchise, like on social media, and plus I did some like podcast research, like just trying to get the feel of what people think of these movies.
Mhm.
Like we've said now, is that when it comes to ranking these films, Terminator 2 is the highest, Terminator 1 is second. I don't know which is third, Genisys or Salvation, whatever it is. They're all 3, 4, and 5 are all within like a tenth of like a percentage point of each other.
Okay,
So
they're almost interchangeable.
Yeah, but the idea that like 3 is the bottom. And I still can't get over that. But Salvation was one of those movies, and even reading like more and more of this like Entertainment Weekly article, which I really should have done ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that like there's like rhetoric in this Entertainment Weekly article that came out the week of release, or maybe the week before, who knows. And it was like, oh God, this is what it says. It's like, McG wants to show the Terminator sizzle reel that he unveiled a month earlier at Comic-Con. A baptism by fire when he and the cast of the reported $200 million flick faced down a room full of 6,000 fans who regarded both him and Salvation with suspicion, if not out hostility. Why the hell were they making another Terminator? Wasn't the franchise dead after 2003's jokey Terminator 3? I mean, you can call Terminator 3 a lot of things. I don't think you can call it jokey considering that ending, but whatever. And what on earth was it doing in the hands of a guy like McG? All fair questions, but right now McG doesn't seem worried about them. He turns out the lights and directs me to a seat in front of a huge flat screen TV, pops in a DVD, cranks up the volume. It has to feel big. And the next 3 minutes are big. And so big that when it's over, McG plays it again and he says, "The old McG is dead." It's great. It's great. Like
He's gonna become Phoenix McG and rise from the ashes.
Oh my God, this goes on more and more. Okay, we'll get to more. We'll read more snippets of this because it gets weirder. We'll get to more of that in due time. But no, I like most of what this movie's going for. I think this film suffers from a lot of the same problems that Genisys will fall prey to.
Okay.
Christian Bale is horribly miscast as John Connor.
Yeah, I didn't care for him as John Connor. Yep.
He's too oh God, Bale comes across as an actor as somebody who knows what he wants to do. Most of the characters he plays, he doesn't play a character that's like, oh, I don't have a firm grasp on this situation. And that's how you always like how John Connor is always portrayed in the previous 2 films.
Yep.
Because it should be pointed out that it's not until Genisys that continuity gets thrown out the window, because at this point the events of Terminator 3 have happened. They're not explicitly referenced, but Catherine Brewster's there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess the only thing that blatantly stood out to me that messed with continuity in this movie was that the tapes that Linda Hamilton recorded for John Connor are completely different from the tapes we hear in the first Terminator.
Well, I said, who knows about that? There's probably a lot of this too. You wonder if it's legal rights, where
Well,
they
yeah,
can't
creative
use
definitely, yeah, but in universe, they are definitely different, like to the tape number. They don't even get the tape number right.
Well, that's a thing though. I don't. It's fun. I remember. Okay, Hollywood context time. I remember back like 5 years ago when the big thing Hollywood was doing was like rebooting things, but like it was the J.J. Abrams Star Trek thing. We're like, oh, we're rebooting the timeline, but like we're not. We're going to change this thing slightly, ignore the things we don't like, but keep the things that people do appreciate. I remember at the time being like, oh, this is creative laziness. You're just picking and choosing what you like. You're cherry picking.
Yeah.
And I've never liked that as a creative decision. And then like over time it's come out like with the Star Trek thing that when J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot got the license to that, they had to change everything like exactly 25%. So they were so I'm thinking and considering that like nowadays when it comes to like movie rights and stuff and a lot of these properties like kind of like pinball around like different studios, like the first Terminator's Orion. Orion goes out of business. Who buys the rights? Again, Terminator 2 is like Studio Canal Plus. And then like Terminator 3 and 4 Warner Brothers. Genisys and Dark Fate are Paramount. So there's a lot of these things where it's like, okay, the reason why Catherine Brewster doesn't show up in Genisys is because she's a Warner Brothers character. They own that character. When you buy the rights to Terminator, you do not get their incarnation of it. The same way, let's say after this Paramount decides, like, I don't know, I think at this point Jimmy C is the one who has the rights back. But like, let's say if he does want like option them out, if somebody wanted to use the Catherine Brewster character, they'd have to go to Warner Brothers and license her out.
Yep. Okay, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I think the tapes thing. That's why I guess time goes on with a lot of movies where you see them like jump around from like different studios. You can't attack movies for that. Now I'm not saying you explicitly, as in Rob. I mean the audience. Yeah. Like when you do watch things, it's like, oh, why is it in Star Trek 2009 Spock sees the destruction of what Vulcan?
His home planet?
Yeah, Vulcan, right?
Yeah, Vulcan. Yeah.
It's like, oh, why? Like he says he watches it from like the snow planet Moon, but like in previous Star Trek lore, Vulcan has no moons. It's like, well, because they have to change things. Like the legal department says you have to do these things or else it's a breach of contract and it's a lawsuit. And that's what it is. And I think that's probably what it was. That's why also it's very obviously also an older Linda Hamilton recording all this. And I think that's why, like you said, I was listening to the dialogue. I'm like, oh wait, it's like the exact same thing she says, but it's been like a lot of the syntax has been changed.
It's a lot faster. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone pulled out the thesaurus too. It's like, okay, we got to change words. And that's what I think it is. I think if they probably could just think about why would you change that? That'd be the easiest thing in the world. You just pull the audio.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're going to do it right now. We're going to play the original Terminator audio and we're going to play the Salvation audio.
Tape 7, November 10. Where was I? What's most difficult for me is trying to decide what to tell you and what not to. But I guess I have a while yet before you're old enough to even understand these tapes. They're more for me at this point, just so that I can get it straight. Should I tell you about your father? Boy, that's a tough one. Will it affect your decision to send him here, knowing that he is your father? If you don't send Kyle, you can never be. God, a person could go crazy thinking about this. I suppose I will tell you. I owe him that. Maybe it'll help if you know that in the few hours that we had together, we loved a lifetime's worth.
This is tape number 28 of Sarah Connor to my son John. What's most difficult for me is trying to decide what to tell you and what not to. Should I tell you about your father? Will it affect your decision to send him back in time to protect me, knowing that he is your father? And he'll be younger than you, only a teenager when you meet him. God, a person could go crazy thinking about this. But if you don't send Kyle, you can never be, and Skynet will win the war.
It's not that hard to do. So like, why wouldn't they do that? And when you think about that, it's like, oh, there probably was something. I think, but why would you pay Linda Hamilton probably at least a 6-figure salary to record like oh God, 30 seconds worth of lines.
Yeah.
Why would you do that unless you have to?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I buy that for sure. It was just, as I'm watching all these in a row, I was like bummed out about that, I guess. But I totally hear what you're saying, that it had to be some, pressure of legalities or rights and things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I said, I've always enjoyed this. This is why we're also combining this with Genisys, because I don't think I have a lot to say about either one of these movies. Okay. In the sense of compared to 1, 2, and 3. I think I really do enjoy. I love the Marcus Wright character. I absolutely love that as a character, the idea of a cyborg man that doesn't know he's a cyborg man, and he wants some form of redemption. I know it's not fleshed out as well as it could be in this movie. Mm-hmm. I know you have it's all said through dialogue, tell it to my brother and the 2 cops that we killed. Yeah. And he gets put to death. And it's okay, and then he stumbles out of the hole, and he does a war cry scream. But I've always loved the aesthetic of him toward the end of the movie, after he saves John Connor from the water Terminator. Mm-hmm. And I love half of his face is gone. Then when he goes into Skynet and he's all torn up and exposed. I love that just as an aesthetic. And I think even though Sam Worthington is at best a mediocre actor, mm-hmm. I think he does the best he can with this material in the sense of a script and the bounds of his acting prowess. Yeah. I've never had a problem in the lineup of Terminator characters. It's rather limited. We have Arnold Schwarzenegger, the guy from the first one that goes into the bunker and wipes them all out. Mm-hmm. Robert Patrick, Kristanna Loken. Yep. And then we get more to Genisys. I think outside of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sam Worthington gives probably the best conflicted Terminator performance. I guess not even want to say conflicted, probably the best Terminator performance outside of Arnold in these movies. Yeah,
I thought he was fine. I didn't have any issue with him. So yeah, I haven't really had an issue with him in anything. It's more of the stuff he chooses to do I have an issue with.
He's just in pain. The thing is that he's a video game avatar. He's so blank. You can plug in almost any element you need, and he's able to just be okay, he's a disabled veteran that's going to Pandora's box to get legs. Okay, all right, it's ancient Greek mythology. What was he, Perseus? It's okay, he has to go on a quest to defeat the gods. Okay, whatever. And I know he did one movie which to this day has maybe the greatest title in cinematic history, quote, Man on a Ledge, where all it is him sitting on a ledge for 2 hours. And I'm maybe every movie in Hollywood should be titled just based off a vague description of the plot. It's what happens in Titanic? People fall in love. Okay. Let's just call it that. Forget Titanic. Just call it People Fall in Love on Boat. Okay. Sold.
Man on a Ledge is even worse than phone booth. What's the premise of phone booth? He's in a phone booth the whole time.
That's what you do. Every single movie, much like how I think every movie sequel should follow the Die Hard model, every movie title that's not Die Hard should have that. Just call it a 5-word description of what the movie is. It's a micro elevator pitch.
Yes, I love it. Yep.
But okay, getting back to Terminator Salvation. I don't like Christian Bale's John Connor, not because of anything that Bale's doing. It's just he's doing his shtick, and it's not what I think of as John Connor. I think you need a little bit more. That's the thing too about this movie is that a lot of people complain about the fact that it's a big departure from the Jimmy C purple, black, and blue future where it's just these and with the chrome robots. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Terminators. Yeah, and I think probably another reason why is they probably couldn't do that. Unless you paid or you did something. Again, it's an issue that you can do anything you want in today's day and age. It's just a matter of how many checks you're willing to write. I think that's probably the reason why they went more with a brown aesthetic as opposed to that overcast, or not, I don't even want to say overcast, but that blacked out sky with purple hues.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep. And I think a big part of this movie was that it's the continuing hope for humanity. At least I got that with the whole Kyle Reese thing where he's not really the soldier yet and has to come into his own in that aspect. So the color being a little more, or different at least makes some sense to me.
Yeah, and that's the vibe too. Because you can also explain it too, is that this movie, much like Genisys, was always envisioned as a trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what this was. This is supposed to be like the first one against. This is going to be I think their Star Wars. This was A New Hope. The second one was going to be The Empire Strikes Back, where all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And then the third one was going to be, okay, probably ending with something like what Genisys begins with, where it's them going back in time. It's like, okay, we have to get into Skynet, but we have to like beat them before they turn on the time machine. Mm-hmm. That's probably what the third one was going to be.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's their equivalent of blowing up the Death Star for the final one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I could see that though. Bryce Dallas Howard has nothing to do. She's just kind of here.
Yep. I want to mention Common. Common has nothing to do, right?
As Barnes. His name, I swear, his name is said as many times as both Kyle Reese and John Connor. It's like, where's Barnes? It's like, Barnes, your brothers didn't make it. I'm like, yeah, brother.
Yeah, I think there was a few points in this movie they were saying Barnes, and I was like, who is that? And then I was like, oh, it's Common. Okay.
It's Common.
And I was like, when are they going to give him a gun with a silencer to get shoot in a busy mall?
Well, he has the best moment, I think, in the entire movie that's not Terminator related, where woman saves Sam Worthington, and it's like, what about woman? She made her choice, and he fires a rocket launcher down the thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
I love that. It's like, oh, this person that like I've known for years in our struggle against the machines, like the ultimate enemy, she makes a bad choice, and it's like, well, she did. I love that. And the way he delivers it, it's like, okay. Like in Common's, like I haven't seen him do a lot of acting stuff, but like he sells it, and and I would imagine too that's what this movie was too, was setting up a lot of characters, for sequels. But it's like, oh man, you wish they could have maybe dialed the setup of things back a little bit, just giving your current characters a little bit more to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was hoping more for as we got through the movie. You know, it was almost like, you know, when they were jumping back between like the John Connor and the Kyle Reese stuff, it was like, okay, come on, like let's do something. And then they finally do meet up. But yeah, I thought there were a lot of characters that were very shallow in this. Yeah.
And I'm not even sure because I found this out today. Did you know Terry Crews is in this movie?
Oh God, no, I did not.
Okay, when John Connor, like in the very beginning of the film, is crawling out of like the hole where they're doing like the medical like experiments.
Okay.
And he gets up there and like the camera pans over to a dead soldier. That's Terry Crews.
Right on.
And I wonder, was that supposed to be Common's brother?
Oh, that makes sense. There you go.
That you think about, like, what, you know, in 2009, who the hell was Terry Crews? At that point, I think he was probably more known as like the new Old Spice guy. Mm-hmm. If that even had started by that point.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, well, I guess like Terry Crews kind of exploded with white chicks, but again, that was years even prior to that, to Salvation.
And now he's on his greatest role ever as the host of America's Got Talent.
I like the woman character. I know her name, but the actress's name, because I think it's fun. Her name is like Moon Bloodgood.
Moon Bloodgood. I'm glad, because if you didn't bring this up, I was going to bring this up, because I think I had recognized this actor when she comes on screen. Like, she gets caught in the parachute or whatever, and I was just like confused as all hell because in one scene, she's like taking her clothes off and she starts just staring at Sam Worthington and she's like, "We're gonna fuck, right?" And he's like, I'm a cyborg. I don't do that." And then she's like all upset that they're not fucking. And then I'm like, is there an implication that like any people, like is that the state of the world, that like if two like reproductive adults are together that they're gonna like try and fuck to continue the species? And because it was so weird to me. And then the next scene is her almost getting raped, and I was like, what? Like, what whiplash is this? So I looked her up because I was so confused, and then I see her name's Moon Bloodgood, and I'm like, okay, I just don't think McG knows what he's doing.
There's so many quotable lines. Like, somebody has, like, on the DVD box art, there are so many things here that need to be put on the box art to this movie now. All right. The scene that you're referencing was cut out of the theatrical release.
I forgot to mention. Yes, this is one of the.
It's a director's cut moment.
Yes, and one of the real ones I have. Yeah.
Yeah. This is only one of 2 director's cuts that Rob has. That's actually that. Yeah, I've only watched that cut of the movie once, and I'm like, I don't remember it. Like, Rob's referencing this scene. I have like a very vague idea that happens, because I know, like, in the theatrical cut, it shows her like taking off her top, and then like it's a hard cut to the guys like attempting to rape her, and it's like that's jarring. And I guess they took out the sensual aspect of it all, because I know the scene after they confront like the rapist is there where like she like snuggles up to him. She's like calm down, like I only want a hug, like to stay warm. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like that's where it is. And it's very, you could tell that was a market research focus group thing, because like it's so like you can tell ripped out of the movie.
Okay, yeah, because the way you're describing it does sound jarring, but this was definitely jarring. It got so like intimate. Like, you know, the camera's on their faces, and she's doing a good job, and Sam Worthington's just like, I'm a cyborg. Like, that's clear at this point in the movie. And then it's like goes on for so long, like long enough for me to write the note like about humans just trying to fuck any chance they can get, because like they're gonna die out. And then it just went totally left field, and then her name's Moon. It's great, Moonblood. Good.
Yeah, there's a lot about whatever. Yeah, that's a scene. It's jarring how it's edited, because again, it really is like she takes off her top, and it's like done from like a distance, and it's silhouettes. You can like see like. You can see her from the waist up pretty good, in the sense of like all her curves and all that. And the very next shot is like her like putting her top back on, and like she hears a noise and she turns around. It's like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. It's like what did I miss? Like clearly there was something here that's supposed to be here. And like you said, clearly they chose between awkward moment or jarring editing, and clearly jarring editing was the best choice.
Fantastic.
But yeah, no, like I like her as a character, like in the sense of like this, like filling out this universe with new characters. Mm-hmm. I have no complaints with her. I think everybody in this movie is doing their job. I don't think there's any performance that's like bad. I think it's either the direction is horrible, or the story and or script is horrible.
Yeah,
not horrible, not even horrible, subpar.
Okay. It's not horrible. I think shallow is the way I would put it. There's no real substance to this movie for me.
Well, it's like a lot of what Hollywood would. It's funny. A lot of what Hollywood would do in the coming years was present in this movie, where it was the idea like, okay, we're doing a trilogy. Let's just set up the stuff. Let's lay all the pieces out. Then the second one will be the really interesting one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're banking on the success of the first one so hard that it takes away from it years after the fact. Now that we're watching it, it's like, because I'm with you, I see all this stuff and it makes sense, and it's like, bummer, why couldn't they just make a movie?
Yeah, I think again it's that same. Again, everybody forgets that like the same thing that's happening right now with Marvel happened back like in the late 2000s, early 2010s with The Dark Knight, where it was like, okay, our first film is the origin story, our second film is where things get dark. It's the dark sequel. Yeah. And that was what they were going for with this. Was that the dark sequels where everything was going to kind of go to hell, where they were probably going to lose all of their like air superiority. And then it becomes kind of like the trucks with the no windshields. That was probably going to be your future for the second movie, or at least halfway through the second movie, going into the third movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
That's the vibe I get, at least, because that's kind of one of those. It's you have to look at a lot of these blockbusters with the context of like what was going on in Hollywood at the time. Yeah. And they're all chasing each other. Like 10, 15 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, oh, why did Universal create a mummy movie with Tom Cruise that kind of doesn't do anything but spin its wheels for 2 hours? Mm-hmm. Well, it was the time of Marvel. Everything had to be a cinematic universe.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. Yeah. They were trying to grow something, and this was the first seed that never took off. Yep. Yeah.
It's the idea of you need the trilogy. The first one's the origin story. The second one is the doom and gloom. And the third one is like ends on the bright, like you know what? Like the battle had a heavy toll. But you know what? We won. And that's where you're introducing all your characters. I would imagine, like, then after like Marcus Wright is gone at the end of this movie, you would probably have Moonblood be a bigger character. You have Common be a bigger character. Catherine Brewster would sit there, have her kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, no other main characters really besides them, right?
Well, I have to mention because
Kyle Reese.
It's later in my notes. Oh, I do have to mention Kyle Reese, but I love the fact that even though we lose Arnold like in a big role in this movie, and only his digital face is what we get to see. Even though we lose Arnold, we gain Richter from Total Recall.
Yeah, Michael Ironside is doing like the greatest Michael Ironside like role ever. It's just barking. That's all it is.
Oh, I love the scene where they're in a submarine. That's where headquarters is, a submarine. And John Connor somehow gets in this underwater submarine, and he's like, Michael Ironside, how did our mission go? And Michael Ironside's like, that's on a need-to-know basis. And so, of course, John Connor's like, I'm John Connor. I'm the best person there is. And Michael Ironside just pulls a gun to his head, and he's like, I can rewrite the future.
I don't believe in prophecy. Not when one can rewrite the future in a heartbeat. Are we on the same page? Yeah. We're on the same page.
And I'm like, oh shit, this escalated.
That doesn't happen in my cut.
Really? Oh yeah,
No.
Yeah. Michael Ironside holds a gun to Christian Bale's head and is like, I can rewrite the future. Like, you're not the best part of this resistance or something like that.
Oh, because that would tie into like the opening crawl of like a lot of people like consider him like a god, not god, but like
a prophet. But
prophet.
some people see him as like a false prophet. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. That would tie in. 'Cause, okay, I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, they want another like opening text crawl like the first Terminator. Oh, interesting. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that was another really jarring scene. So it makes sense that they cut that out. Yeah.
Well, apparently, I don't even know if they cut it out. Is that they apparently submitted it because the cut you watched is rated R.
Yeah, I did read that apparently the extra 4 minutes in my version ups the rating.
Yeah. I guess, whatever. That's okay. Where do you want to go? Because there's one very specific thing I find amusing about this movie.
I guess I should. I've always really liked Anton Yelchin, so he was great. I thought he was fine, and maybe not great, but fine in this movie. But I think we've been saying that with the performances. I think in terms of other characters, the only one I wanted to mention was that the Terminators have a Jaeger that attacks that like 7-Eleven or something.
It has a name, Rob.
The T Jaeger?
No. The term, it's called like the T Harvester.
Oh, okay.
It's actually in Terminator canon. If it's not broken and contorted at this point, yes. It's called the T. I think it's the T Harvester or just the Harvester.
Okay.
And I love the noises it makes.
It did make some good noises. The one of the things that I was confused about though was it shows up. It captures people, like it shows that it's picking up humans and putting them in this little like containment thing attached to it that is open, like it's a cage, like there's holes in it, so air can get through. And then as like the people, Anton Yelchin and Sam Worthington are trying to leave or get away from the Jaeger, they cause like this giant gas explosion.
Yep.
To try and stop it, and I'm like, so they just killed Kyle Reese, right? Because Kyle Reese is in the Jaeger at that point, or they killed all the people at least in the Jaeger.
Well, yeah.
And so they never like addressed that.
It's not. I don't know. Okay, this is a weird one because I don't think the movie's meant to be looked at this way.
Sure. Because
there is like the giant hunter killer that's storing all them. I don't know. Like this giant hunter killer has. I'm sorry. The Harvester Jaeger has the ability to store humans. It seems like it's just there. Like, I don't know. A lot of that seems like, okay, it's a cool idea. It's not very practical because a lot of this movie, like the Terminators, like why would the Terminators have a facility where like people have to like have touch screens?
Yes.
It's like robots wouldn't design touch screens because they wouldn't need that because they would. It's code. It's like it would send commands. It's like none of this makes sense. Especially that John Connor has like a little like motorcycle one that he hacks into that he uses to like access a touch screen inside like the R&D department. It's like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make any sense, but it's not meant to be looked at that way. So like,
Yeah,
I don't mean to like ever, again, I don't want to scrutinize it that way. Even though that's what we did for Terminator 2 when it came to like, what was the door, it's like Cyberdyne.
No, that's
Like I
fair.
said-
That's fair. I do have to say I like that they call them in the movie Moto Terminators.
Well, that's another thing too, is that like, again, very clever on a visual level. It's like, okay, they're trying to escape the 7-Eleven, and we should point out there were Slurpee cups in May of 2009 you could buy with Terminator logos on them. They escape, and I think it's a pretty cool action sequence. Like, that's one thing too. The action in this movie is pretty solid for the most part. And they blow it up, but they have the giant oil tanker. They drive it into this thing. It knocks it down. They shoot at it. They light the flare. It blows up. And then as they're trying to escape, the thing launches 2 little motorcycle Terminators out of its ankles. And at one point, like, they sit there, like, what? They flip, like, they drive into a car and it flips over the giant, like, Mad Max vehicle.
Oh, yes. I guess I should say that.
And the thing slides under it. It's like, oh, like, that's like on a visual level. I love that.
Yeah, that as Zack knows, which I don't think I get to say enough on this podcast, if you have a vehicle with a cow catcher on the front of it, you get a thumbs up from me. And that's exactly what they did in this action scene. So I was totally on board with it.
I feel like there's a story there, but we're going to have to save that for another day.
I don't know if it's a story. It's just what I want on my vehicle. In real life.
Okay, folks. You know what? I should have seen that coming, because if you know Rob, you'll know that's actually something that he has wanted for at least 10 years now.
Yep. They keep they won't let me pass inspection out here in Colorado.
Okay, Terminator motorcycles. I like that. I've always liked that sequence. I think it's great. I love how they have the little, like, much like Terminator 3, they had the little, like, ball at the end of the chain.
Yeah.
And they wrap the little motorcycle Terminator in it. And at one point they like brake hard on a bridge, and it actually becomes airborne and locks around one of the like repulsor like things of the hunter killer. And like, that's neat. Like, I think that, like, if you're doing action, and that's another thing when it comes to Terminator Salvation, I think a lot of people just get so hung up on the fact of like, oh God, Sam Worthington is horrible. John Connor isn't that good. McGee is stupid. And we lose sight of the fact that we have some really good action sequences in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't bother me. That was the stuff I was more like intrigued in. It was like, I definitely had the sense where a lot of the movie I was like, Kyle Reese is going to live, right? So where's the tension? But it's interesting to, like, some of the choreography of the action was very interesting to watch. Exactly.
Well, yeah, it's an action adventure movie. And I think a lot of people get caught up. Like, it's this weird thing that happened with Marvel for the longest time, where it became a thing like, oh, the Marvel movies are stupid because there's no life or death stakes. And I'm like, is that how you judge a movie? It's like, do you go to movies like just hoping the characters die? And if they don't die at the end of the movie, you don't like it? Like, I've always found like a weird metric that like characters need to die for there to be stakes. Half the fun of movies is like watching the characters get stuck in a scenario and then watching them dig their way out.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that as a metric, and it's sad to see that even like Marvel fell prey to that with Avengers Endgame, where like we have to kill characters to give a story weight.
Sure.
And that's why, like, something like Terminator Salvation, I don't want to say I think I enjoy, like, I don't want to say I love it, but I've always enjoyed it because, again, I think the action is cool. It's stuff that I have not seen, like, a Terminator robot that can sit there, or a motorcycle that can kind of move the way it does in a Mad Max world. And then, like, all think about that action sequence begins with them in the 7-Eleven. It goes all the way to the bridge. It goes then all the way to like Marcus Wright, like jumping on top of it. He gets caught by the harvester. That's like somehow like goes inside it like a transformer. It grabs him and like slams him into it. And then we have like the warthog hunter killer chase through like the canyons of California. And like that action sequence has to go on for like what, 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, it's lengthy.
And it's really cool because like it's unfolding, and all the character and story beats converge at that moment. We introduce the Bloodgood character. We have the Sam Worthington, Kyle Reese stuff, and we have John Connor.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like you have at that point 2 different stories. They become interlaced, and then they sprout out again, and then we have 3 different stories.
Yeah.
And again, that's an aspect of this that, like, imagine if a Marvel movie did that. Imagine if we went in with having two plot threads in a Marvel movie, and then at one point the two of them converge, and a third one pops out of it, and it's all done rather seamlessly.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about it that way, but no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think this is another one of those movies that, like, we throw out the baby with the bathwater. Again, we're so hung up on the nostalgia of Arnold's not in it. It's stupid. And I'm like, for a podcast I was listening to today, I listened to their Terminator Genisys episode, and like any good Terminator discussion, you have to talk about all the movies. You can't just talk about one. And they were talking about Salvation, and the guy, whoever, it was three guys, they all sound the same. You could never really tell which one was which. And they're like, well, and they asked the one guy, like, what'd you think of Salvation? He's like, I saw it when it came out, but it was a lot like stepping in dog crap. Like, I scraped it off my shoe. I don't remember what it smelled like, though, but I know it happened. And I'm like, this movie's not that. Like,
yeah,
I don't
definitely.
care.
Yeah, I would not describe it that harshly. Yeah, that's crazy.
And yet the entire argument again boils down to is that Terminator 2 is the greatest film of all time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if that, again, why are you going to see movie sequels if you've already decided that a prior installment is the best one, and no matter what they do, they're never going to be able to top it?
Yeah,
why
exactly.
are you going to see it? Like, you're not going to like it going in. What's the point?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what bothers me. Is like, if you don't like Rob, obviously Rob's not too thrilled about this, but it's not, his opinion isn't founded in Terminator 2 is the best film ever.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And again, because it's not a lot. Okay, I'm trying to think of other things. Anything else you want to talk about this? Because the only other thing I really want to highlight is the Skynet base makes no sense. Like, period. And I love Kyle Reese's little friend, a little black girl with the afro in the hat.
Oh,
who doesn't
the mute
talk
one or something? Yeah.
Her name is Star. And my favorite scene in the entire film is, actually, there's a couple of my favorite scenes with her. I love there's one point where John Connor at the end has opened all the holding cells. Yet somehow it didn't open didn't open Kyle Reese's.
Yeah.
Even though Sam Worthington unlocks that information.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me either.
Didn't make any sense. And when Christian Bale is going throughout the base, he's like stopping every guy like under 20. He's like, Kyle Reese. I guess we should point out that Christian Bale's doing the Batman voice throughout the entire movie.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, how could we? It's almost like it was assumed knowledge, but yes, we should mention it. If you've never seen this movie, just imagine that.
Essentially, again, that might be another one to do. We have to do a comparison: Christian Bale in Terminator and Christian Bale in Batman. Try to figure out which. I'll have to pick scenes from both movies where they could fit either way.
Yeah, I'm thinking of there's that scene where in Dark Knight where he's looking for the Joker, and he's like, "Where is he?" He's like, "Where is he?" And he's like, hey, "Nobody knows this dude." He's like, "He must have friends."
Where is he?
I don't know where he is. He found us.
He must have friends.
Friends? You met this guy?
Someone knows where he is.
And this same scene where he's like, "Where's Kyle Reese? Kyle Reese. He must have friends."
It really is, because like I know at one point, I'm trying to think, like, oh god, he goes at the very end with Kyle Reese, where it's like, wait, I'm not going to leave you. You're not. It's like, who are you? I'm Batman. It's like that's why I expected him to say like this. Like, I'm John Connor.
Where are you going? I gotta end this. No, I'm not gonna leave you. You didn't.
Who are you?
John Connor.
Just say I'm Batman.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter at this point.
I'm Bat Connor.
But going back to him, like searching for Kyle Reese in the R&D department, I love how we have Star there, and she's just standing there. And for some reason, she's just standing there. She doesn't know who John Connor is. And he goes there, he points her and goes, "You move!"
Yeah.
And the scene cuts, and I'm like, God damn, that's a great Razzie moment. Like, how did the Razzies not give that to him? Like, we have to look up who was nominated in 2009. But like, why was that there? Why would you write that in the script? And if it wasn't in the script, why did you feel compelled to film it? Yeah. And if all those things happened, why did you feel forced to put it in the final cut?
I think that's where part of Christian Bale's on-set explosion bled into this actual film, because He probably was they probably just edited like the little girl standing there looking scared with Christian Bale yelling at the lighting guy, right?
Okay, do you want to explain the story behind that? Because I feel that story might actually outlive this movie.
So my first note under my notes for Terminator Salvation, I say, of course, never seeing this movie, the only thing I know about it is Christian Bale's behind-the-scenes explosion. And in the same note, in all caps, I write, our professional relationship is over. So Zack might know some of the finer details, but audio leaked on somewhere. I think I saw it on YouTube way back in the day, that during the filming of this movie, Christian Bale absolutely exploded at a crew member for walking on scene during a shot. And it exploded because it is one of the most like childish, cringiest encounters or interactions between humans that I think I've ever heard. Because Christian Bale is just angry. And everybody knows if you ever gotten insanely angry, you don't make sense. You just repeat the things and that's making you angry, and you're just threatening people. And so, he's yelling at this lighting guy, our professional relationship is over. He's like, why were you walking on set? Oh, to check the lights, to check the fucking lights. We have to put some clips in because it's so good, I think.
I want you off the fucking set, you prick! I'm sorry. No, don't just be sorry. Think for one fucking second. The fuck are you doing? Are you professional or not?
Yes, I am.
McGee, you got fucking something to say to this prick?
I didn't see it happen.
Well, somebody should be fucking watching and keeping an eye on him.
Fair enough.
This is the second time that he doesn't give a fuck about what is going on in front of the camera. All right? I'm trying to fucking do a scene here, and I'm going, why the fuck is Shane walking in there? What is he doing there? Do you understand my mind is not in the scene if you're doing that? I'm gonna fucking kick your fucking ass. You don't shut up for a second, all right? I'm gonna go. Do you want me to go fucking trash your lights? Do you want me to fucking trash them? Then why are you trashing my scene?
I'm not trying to trash.
You are trashing my scene. You do it one more fucking time, and I ain't walking on this set if you're still hired. I'm fucking serious. You're a nice guy. You're a nice guy, but I don't fucking cut it when you're bullshitting and fucking around like this on set.
But the other thing that I wanted to talk about with this is this gained some popularity. I remember hearing about it when it was created, but it's the I don't remember, what is it, Velo Motions or whatever, the auto-tune remix of Christian Bale's explosion that also gets mixed in with some like other celebrity explosions. So I think it's a very interesting way to play with it. So was there anything more to the story that came out later on, or is it really just Christian Bale got mad and it leaked somehow?
I've never understood like why this like exploded in popularity. Like I didn't really even know about this, I think, until like when the movie came out, or maybe like the Entertainment Weekly article. I was never a huge social media person growing up. Like, of course, I had the things like your MySpace, your Facebooks,
mm-hmm.
but I was never like clued in at that point in my life to like hearing about things like that, like in the Hollywood industry. Whereas now it would be inescapable to like if something like that ever happened.
Yeah.
You know more about it than I do at this point.
Oh, okay.
I've never I've known about it as like a footnote in history with this movie, and like I said, sadly, that legacy will outlive the movie itself. Yeah, I've never been bothered by it. It's like I've always tried to figure out, watching the film, what sequence it was they were filming.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I've always guessed that it's the sequence where he's yelling at Michael Ironside through the communication device. It's like if we don't stop the bombing of Skynet, we're dead. We're all dead. I've always assumed it was that.
Okay.
I don't know for certain though. Probably is on record somewhere what moment he was doing this in. But that's always been my biggest question, is at what moment, they're always like, oh, like he did this during a very tense like sequence in the movie. I'm like, it's a Terminator movie. What tense is there? Like, unless it was something physical, unless like they were having him do a stunt where
mm-hmm.
maybe he's thrown himself off the side of like, I don't know, a story drop like 1 or 2 or 3 times. And he's just kind of like fatigued at that point.
Yeah.
But again, like Christian Bale's always been known as like kind of like an a-hole in person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too surprising that like on a movie he doesn't really want to be working on, something that he considers like below him, he's only doing it for a paycheck. I could see him getting mad or just being very easily like, it wouldn't be hard to light his fuse.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never been bothered by that. I know some people find that absolutely fascinating. I've never been one of those people.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. I think we've discussed to some extent. I love when people get like stupidly emotional. Like it's very interesting to watch. Things like that. So it's always been intriguing to me, especially because it ends like it's the YouTube or the leaked audio, I guess I should say, is like about 3 minutes long, I think. And the way it ends is with like constant screaming. And then it gets to a point where I think McGee or whoever's on set is like, let's take 5 and do it again. And Christian Bale's like, no, we're going to keep going. And then it like dies down a little bit. And then he screams, our professional relationship is over. Fucking ass. And that's how it ends, type of thing. And I've always loved the way that it just kind of dies down. And then there's one spike to carry us out.
Seriously, man, you and me, we're fucking done professionally. Fucking ass.
And like I said, so if we haven't already, we'll get some clips into that. It is Revolution's remix, which he actually called Bail Out. That's the name of it. And it is a true testament to fantastic sound editing. We'll have to get some of that in here. And it might come back later in reverse. Who knows?
Yeah, that's good old Christian Bale.
You want me to go fucking trash your lights? Do you want me to fucking trash them? Fuck! And what the fuck is it with you?
I was looking at the light.
Fuck! And what the fuck is it with you?
I was looking at the light.
Fuck! And what the fuck is it with you?
I was looking at the light.
Fuck! And what the fuck is it with you?
I was looking at the light.
It's fucking distracting. Oh, good. 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 No, fuck, no. 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 No, fuck, no.
So I definitely wanted to mention that. And I think the only other thing I wanted to mention about this was, did you notice when Sam Worthington is being captured, when he is captured by the humans, and it's revealed that he's a cyborg to nobody's surprise, he says, I'm not a cyborg. I am human. I was born on August 22nd. He's a week after Ben Affleck's birthday. I groaned. They missed a great opportunity.
They missed a great opportunity to tie it all together.
Exactly. So did you have anything else to say about the Skynet base? Was that the only other thing we...
Yes. I've always been bothered. Not bothered. That's not the right word. I've always found it amusing that, okay, Sam Worthington, Marcus Wright, like walks up to the front gate, the sentry like outside, and they do a pretty good job of what like Skynet Central is supposed to look like, or at least the Terminator 2 3D version of what it's supposed to look like, where it's just like a giant like pyramid.
Okay.
I've always liked that, the idea, like, not that you have to scale it, but you have to kind of like walk up it. And I like the Sentry too. In the moment, like it knows who he is, and just automatically doesn't shoot him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. He's allowed in. He's part of the club. He gets in, and they have like a terminal for him where he puts his hand on it, and somehow through like fingerprint touch, it communicates information to him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm like, did Skynet really? And plus, it's like an all-white room. Why would Skynet? And I get it; it's for aesthetic reasons. It's there for it's to communicate to the dummies in the audience. I get it, but why would Skynet have like Skynet should just be like a giant room of servers with like a manufacturing like warehouse.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you.
And it would look. I know, obviously, when they were making this film, is again 10 years later, but it would have more in common Skynet Central of like an Amazon like fulfillment warehouse, where you would sit there, have a bunch of things just running around either on guided tracks or little sensors in the floor.
Yep.
Than you would anything else.
Yeah, and people in cages on the sides in terrible living conditions. It's truly prophetic.
There's your daily dose of satire, folks. Oh boy. But no, so like that's always kind of like bothered me. The idea, like then you have like, oh god, when John Connor goes in and somehow Sam Worthington is a transmitting device, like he just now is discovering that he's a Terminator, and yet he has the ability to like wirelessly communicate to John Connor through like an iPad before iPads were a thing. I want to point out iPads were not a thing yet when this movie was being made.
Okay.
And I'm like, how is this possible? Like, there's no cell towers. How is he transmitting this? And I would imagine, I get it. Skynet, in a way, is allowing this all to happen to lure John Connor in.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, I'm like, okay, whatever. And then you look at when John Connor goes in there, and a lot of this can be explained with the idea that Skynet is luring him in, but so much of like the tech in Skynet is being designed with like people walking around.
Sure.
And this is the thing that's, and okay, there's small things too, like when Marcus Wright like picks up where it's like, oh god, Helena Bonham Carter says something. And I do like this sequence in the movie. I love it where she's like, the human condition no longer applies to you. And he rips the chip out of his head and he goes, I'm better this way. Like it almost makes no sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like better than what? It's like, you really had complete control the entire time. Like I know that he was being controlled to go back to Skynet Central, but like him stumbling into Kyle Reese was like practically an accident. Like that was never like, did Skynet know where he was? It's like, again, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
But I like the line, like I'm better off this way. You know, it makes no sense in the context of the movie, but then he picks up like a stool and throws it through the glass monitor. And I'm like, why would Skynet need a glass monitor? Why would Skynet need a stool?
I took that to just be they wanted to reference the Apple 1984 commercial where they throw the sledgehammer through the thing. And I was like, exactly. Oh god.
Yeah, it's a throwback to like the idea of like machines controlling the world. Yeah. I get it. But it's like, why would, like, of all the things in that room, like there's a little like, oh god, like an arm that's there to obviously like rebuild him. It's like, why not have him rip that out and throw it into the glass? There's so many things you can. Why a stool?
Yep. Yeah.
But I also, like I said, in John Connor going through like them having touch screens, them having like all this walk around area stuff, that doesn't make any sense. It's again, it should look like an Amazon warehouse. There shouldn't be that much like walking around room. But the thing I like to, or I've always dug it, was when they're all being ushered out of like the giant hunter killers into the facility, and that's where we do get your more like blue, like dark hues that are more like Terminator 1 and 2-esque.
Sure.
And you have the rubber skin Terminators, which I do like. I like them early on. Well, the one we see very early in the film that tries to kill Sam Worthington and Kyle Reese, and then when they're guarding the tops of like the railings. I always just like, I can kind of like this really like rubbery skin with the glowing red eyes. As an aesthetic, I think that's really cool. And the fact that they look like they were done with practical effects. Because this was Stan Winston's last film.
Yep.
Which
okay.
I remember reading that before this film came out, that he died during the production of this. And in a weird way, I've always wondered, like going to the thing of like practical effects versus like everything now is CGI. They don't build anything physically unless they're deliberately trying to impress people in the audience. And I've always wondered that, like, if it weren't for Stan Winston dying, I wonder if practical effects would have played a much more prevalent role in the industry for as many years. I think Stan Winston only died in his 60s. So he probably could have lived another 10, 15 years, not saying that he would have worked up until the day he died.
Sure.
But it's the idea that, like, people like Rick Baker, like, God, monster makeup, he kind of just, like, gave up because it was like, they don't need me anymore.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. So that's an interesting question, though.
And that's why I've always wondered, it's like, maybe if somebody like Stan Winston, that, like, everybody kind of worshipped in Hollywood, was alive, not that they would have felt like, oh, God, guilty or for not wanting to employ him, but someone like him, like a visionary, would have been like, oh, this is my industry. I'm going to show you how much, like, even though, yes, CGI effects can be very good, but there is something lost. Like, there's two scenes between, like, Terminator Salvation and Genisys, where this is another one of those comical scenes where, for some reason, John Connor is trying to open up two doors, and then, like, he hears a Terminator coming, but with the wire still connected into the terminal, he hides behind the little door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is so stupid. Like, the Terminator would see that and just start shooting him. But whatever, fine, I don't care. But that's very clearly a real Terminator. Like, that is a prop that was put on some. It's only from, like, the waist, the torso up. It was put on someone's shoulders, and someone had to maneuver physically around with that. And it's like, you juxtapose that with Terminator Salvation, and you have the moment where Jai Courtney, Kyle Reese is fighting, like, the endoskeleton in the hideout. And he has like the really big 50 caliber gun. The Terminator's like punching into the ground to, like, get him. And even though that's a cool action sequence, it's so fake looking.
Yeah. Yep.
And one little sequence of the Terminator kind of, like, bumbling on screen and then, like, turning its head is infinitely more interesting than a 5-minute long action sequence.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Because there's nothing physical to it. And that's what I've always wondered, was, like, could there have been a future where we get a little bit more of the past clinging, just because it's like someone like a Stan Winston would have been like, okay, I'm going to show you guys why, not that maybe my thing is better, but it has more stay power.
Exactly.
Stay power.
Yep.
And then the last thing I want to point out, and this goes back, and I don't want to harp on it too long, so I want to get to Genisys, is that in the sequence when they're all being, like, corralled out of the holding pens of the hunter killer into the facility. At one point, I don't know who it is. That could be the old woman. It could be Star. It could be Kyle Reese. They look up to the giant, like, blue tower, the Skynet tower, and you see 5 silhouettes up there.
Oh, I don't think I picked up on that, or at least I didn't write it down.
I don't know for certain, because I've watched this, and it's one shot. And I don't know if it's just my eyes seeing things, but it's a white background. And we know they're white because the later scenes with Sam Worthington, Helen Bonham Carter, it's deliberately, you see all the floors, and I'm not sure if it's 5. It could be 3, 4, 5, but you see 5 silhouettes that look like persons high up. And and you can tell that they're looking down upon all this.
Okay.
Or they're at least looking out the window. And I've always wondered, is there a human element? Because we don't know because I would imagine a lot of these drafts of Terminator get passed around, because I know for this movie, when the DVD Blu-ray came out, I remember reading a story online saying, like, oh, there's an alternate ending when they replace John Connor's heart with Marcus's, that John Connor becomes bad, or something happened to John Connor in the facility where, like, they give him the new heart, he pulls out a gun and shoots all of them dead. His eye glows red, and the movie ends.
Ooh.
And I went, like, nuts, being like, oh my God, they actually made that as an ending? And I remember reading that, like, oh, it's on the Blu-ray. I'm like, it's on the Blu-ray. I don't remember seeing that on the Blu-ray. So I remember, like, digging through all the special features, and what it is that in one of the featurettes, because I'm not sure if Rob remembers this, or maybe I don't think Rob was ever a big Blu-ray person. This was the same time as, like, Watchmen, where they had, like, the picture-in-picture, like, Blu-ray special features, where, like, it wasn't like, oh, like, click on this featurette and you have, like, 20 minutes of them, like, talking about how they made the movie. It was this thing where, like, you had to watch the movie, and at certain portions, like, they'd stop the movie and they'd, like, play a little video in the corner.
Oh.
And that's what this was. And what it was is that they show, I don't know how far it got, but they actually did storyboard it out where they have John Connor shooting everybody. His eye glows red, and that's how the movie ends.
Wow.
So and apparently in the interview, Christian Bale talks about that, and that was the ending he was lobbying for.
Of course.
So I've always wondered that maybe there, much like how we talked about with Terminator 2, and it feels like there was some sort of, like, human element that was, like, like puppet master behind all this.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was an element to that as well, because I know even going I remember, I think this was before the movie came out. This was, I want to say, in like the fall of 2008, maybe spring of 2009. It could have been even earlier. This was like one of those things, kind of like Greg's previews, where I remember reading that they had an idea for a fourth Terminator film. And they wanted to base, because they felt like they already played out the whole John Connor thing. He was getting stale as a character. And they were going to make a new character named Marcus, the main character. And the ending of this fourth Terminator film was going to be John Connor is mortally wounded. And whoever it was, Marcus Wright was going to sit there, have John Connor's heart implanted in or transplanted into him.
Okay.
So it would be the heart of the destruction of Skynet would be in this new character.
Gotcha.
And this new Marcus character would be the hero of the franchise going forward.
Oh, okay. But instead they flipped it.
That's what I'm guessing, because I remember reading that, and we're talking about 10 plus years ago. I can still remember vividly reading that. And not that I was bummed, but it was like, oh, who the hell is this Marcus character? And as I was watching this, I'm like, oh, I would rather see a continuation of the Salvation storyline with Marcus Wright as like a half-man, half-Terminator hybrid leading the Resistance than like John Connor, Christian Bale, like gargling his way through it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And I've always been interested by that. I wonder how much, and I still think, again, Genisys is its own can of worms, but I do think that there is an element to the Terminator franchise that's never been discussed, where there is some human puppet master behind it all. That's why it's just somebody, again, and I think unless you have anything else to say about Salvation, I think we can maybe transition into Genisys this way, is because in Genisys we get the human embodiment of Skynet.
Yes.
And I think maybe that's where the idea of the Matt Smith character comes from, is that there maybe was this human, I don't want to say human, but this physical person form of Skynet that was there all along.
Yeah, an embodiment of the essence of Skynet, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where that idea came from, because as I was watching Genisys, I'm like, oh, maybe this is kind of like the extrapolation of that, where maybe there was this always a person, I'm using that term very loosely, I mean kind of like an inorganic being that was an embodiment of this giant just entity. A concentration of this large entity.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I could buy that.
And that's why, again, because there is evidence in all these movies that, except for maybe the first and the third one, that there is a specific entity behind it all.
Okay.
There's a Terminator puppet master somewhere hidden under all these layers.
Yeah. I could see that for sure.
So, Rob, Terminator Genisys.
Oh God! Why is this movie 2 hours long? Oh, this movie it had its saving graces, I have to say. J.K. Simmons.
This movie had its saving graces. A tertiary character that's in the movie for a grand total of 3 minutes, if that.
Yeah, he is definitely the best thing about this movie. I do have to say though, because we have to get it out of the way, Emilia Clarke, severely miscast in this and everything else she's ever been in. I have to say, though, that we get one of the greatest interactions between her and Jason Clarke when Jason Clarke shows up in the mid-past future, whatever the fuck it is, and he's like, aha, I'm John Connor, I'm here to save you guys. And Sarah Connor's like, they can shapeshift. How do I know you're John Connor? Like, prove it. And he basically says something about Emilia Clarke or Sarah Connor trying to sing to him when he was younger. And he actually says the line, he's like, you have a terrible voice. It's true. You sound like a dying cat. And I had to pause the movie, and I was like, thank you. Thank you for getting to say what I've always wanted to say to Emilia Clarke, even if it was for a movie.
You hate lullabies. You're a sucker for Elton John. And you always thought if you had a child, you'd sing him Rocket Man.
John?
You got a terrible voice. I'm sorry, it's true. You sound like a dying cat.
Thank you, Jason Clarke. Thank you.
I think we figured out what Rod's favorite Terminator film is. And maybe one of his favorite films of all time because of this one line of dialogue.
It lets me live so excellently vicariously. It was awesome. So
I
J.K.
didn't think of
Simmons
that.
and that, yeah.
Yeah, Terminator Genisys is a okay. Terminator Genisys, I remember, much like Jurassic World, Real Scary Stories, there is the article that was I wrote at the time of this. It's a nice little kind of like snapshot time of what I was feeling about this. I walked out of this movie, and I saw it, okay, context of Terminator Genisys. Oh, yeah, because there is a fun story to this. Okay, this movie, I remember when I was in college, I had the professor who, he was like the freshman year thing that I had up at college, and weird story though, but he was kind of like this thing that was like a very small classroom setting. It was a way of like easing us into college. And he was like a royal cynical SOB bastard, but he knew his like nerdy stuff well. Like he was like encyclopedic knowledge. I think I've referenced him a couple of times. If not here, definitely on the Star Wars podcast. And I remember going to him. At this point, I kind of knew him as a nerd. Like, he knew his nerdy topics. And it was like spring of 2011. And I'm like, they're making another Terminator movie. And he's like, oh no. He's like, just let it die. And I'm like, Arnold's coming back. And he's like, ugh. And that was kind of my first like hinting of Terminator, or Terminator 5, which would become Genisys. Because I think at that point, Justin Lin, who's a director of Terminator, Fast and Furious 3, 4, 5. He's the one, and I think 6 too. Yeah, 6, 3, 4, 5, and 6. He was attached to direct it. And it was like, oh, okay, like, not a bad idea. He eventually dropped out, I think, because I think he just got tired of like working on Fast and Furious movies and just like big blockbusters. And or maybe he did. I think he got or maybe he chose between G.I. Joe 2 and this. I forget. Whatever it is, he backed out. And I know Arnold was coming back, because this is when Arnold was like coming back to like all like becoming Arnold again. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I think this was after Thor: The Dark World came out, and they're like, Alan Taylor is directing it. And I'm like, that's the most uninspired choice for a term, like for any movie. When you hire a Game of Thrones, because at that point, Game of Thrones was like exploding in popularity. Mm-hmm. But like TV like show directors are like do what they're told. They don't have visions. Like they basically are proxies for the producers. Yep. There's no vision. Like, as much as we laugh at McG, I think he was less of a slave to the producers in the studio than Alan Taylor was. And it really shows. You know, I know this is horrible to say, but like after this, Alan Taylor has not gotten another big gig. And thank God, because he has no voice. Not to say you need a voice, but it's just like he doesn't belong in feature filmmaking. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's what this movie really shows. It just feels like it's the most cynical, like cash grabby movie ever.
Oh my God, I can't stand just the sassiness in the tone of like between Arnold, Emilia Clarke, and Jai Courtney. I'm like, no. I'm like, we don't need this in this franchise.
Yeah, there's like, okay, and this, I guess there's a little bit more context. So like this movie, like the trailers came out, and I was stoked. Like you started to learn like, oh, they're gonna do the Back to the Future Part 2 thing where we go back in time and we like weave our way through like the past events. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like at that point, like technology was finally catching up to like what people wanted to do with that. We're like, I know a lot of people attacked the moment in Terminator Salvation with Arnold, and I never had a problem with that. I remember Sal and Josh talking about it. Rob knows who that is. You know, that word had to be bleeped out. Yeah. And they all, and Rob can agree he was that, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, good. That guy might be the worst person that's ever lived, folks. That's not exactly. He might be. It's funny, in a contest between my nephew and Josh, like we're talking about like, ugh, like that's a nail biter. Like that. Those are two like horrible human beings. Like the worst of the people, I'd say, right?
I've only met one of them as far as I know, so I guess.
But anyway, though, Josh Blank from high school, like him and Sal used to complain about Arnold from Terminator Salvation, and I never understood why. Rewatching it for this, I still don't understand why. But no, so like technology was finally catching up for Salvation. I thought it was really cool again, the Arnold, like, I've been waiting for you. I'm like, cool, neat, I'll take it.
That was like the one scene in this movie where I was ready to be on board. because Zach knows I love me some revisionist history, especially when it's in franchise. You know, like all that shit they pulled on Lost, I loved. So I was ready for this, but then it went downhill so fast.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But no, like that stuff in the marketing was neat. And I'm like, okay, cool. And like any good Terminator fan, like when the trailers would come out, I watched them. I'm like, okay, like I'm on board. Like a lot of it's cool. Like every single trailer ends with the I'll be back. What? And he goes crashing through the helicopter. I'm like, neat. I'm like, I'm on board. It's neat. It's Arnold saying his line after like 12 years. Fine, I'll take it. And then in the last trailer, I guess the market research focus groups weren't testing. It wasn't testing well, the movie, because they gave away the John Connor's the bad guy.
They did that in the marketing?
In the final trailer, they gave that away. And it never bothered me because I knew the whole thing about like John Connor, like being the bad guy. It's like an alternate version of Salvation.
Sure.
So like I was never bothered by that. I'm like, oh, it's clever. Like you can only do them running away from the T-1000 so many times. I'm like the idea of making John Connor the bad guy. That's a neat premise. It's all about execution, but it's an idea you can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like on the poster, it's him like half Terminator, half Jason Clarke. And it's like God movie. Like I get it. Like you have to tip again. The marketing department is not there to make sure you go in like fresh to a movie. The marketing department is told one thing: get people into seats.
Yep.
We don't care what it takes. Make sure they buy a ticket. We'll worry about the fallout. And that's what the marketing department does. It has one job and it has to play every card in its hand. The Rotten Tomatoes embargo dropped I think because this came out I think like on a 4th of July weekend in 2015 or sometime around there.
Okay.
And like at first the couple of reviews I read weren't like stellar, but they were like overall positive. Like, okay, it's better than Salvation. It's better than 3. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then like the deluge, just like the people crapping on it, became the thing of it's not Terminator 2 and it's awful. That rhetoric again. It's not Terminator 2. Again, every review said the exact same thing. It was shocking. It's better than 3 and 4, but it's not 2. Rotten Tomatoes score. Okay, whatever. In the days leading up to this, on the official like Terminator Twitter account or whatever it was, they had like a contest. It was like, oh, give us your best like made up Arnold one-liner, and you can win a 1-to-1 Terminator endoskeleton head bust. And I at that point I think I won a couple of things off Twitter. I won a Blu-ray copy of John Carter of Mars. I won like a McDonald's that is the thing that I won. Not to buy my copy of John Carter.
What'd you have to do? Just like tweet at them?
More or less. And it wasn't just me either. I think it was like one of those, you'd be like the first of like 25 people to enter, and everybody got a copy of John Carter.
I was about to say, was it a participation trophy?
More or less. But like I also won like a beer can cozy from like McDonald's. Like I had a pretty good track record of winning these things. But like it was one of those, like the movie was coming out in a couple of days, and you know what's Terminator? It was IMAX. It was the official IMAX Twitter account. That's what it was. And their thing was like, give us your best like made up Arnold one-liner. Like, it couldn't be something he's already said. It had to be like your own like one-liner. And I figured like it had like hundreds of replies, and I can still remember what I wrote. It was quote, "I'm old," and then in parenthetical, loud explosion. Like nice. it was horrible. And I deliberately tweeted that like 100% being like, I'm not going to win this. I have no, I don't anticipate on winning this. Unlike the lightsaber contest, I had not a snowball's chance in hell of winning this. And then I had notifications on my phone for Twitter, and it says like, oh, IMAX followed you. I'm like, why the hell is IMAX following me? I'm like, they don't usually do that. Then I get a direct message being like, congratulations, you won. And I'm like, nice. What the hell is what sort of future is this? What dark timeline do I live in? And I could never figure out why they picked me. The only reason why I think they did was in anticipation, because I was really excited for this movie. Mm-hmm. I had decked out my entire Twitter feed, everything Terminator. I made my background Terminator. The last 5 things I tweeted were about Terminator. I think the last thing I tweeted was my ticket stub from Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines like opening day. I think my like avatar was something like Terminator related. Like I had gone all out Terminator, and I think that's why they picked me. So I came across as like a hardcore fan, which is what I am. I wasn't lying. It wasn't like I was faking it. But they sent me the Terminator endoskeleton, and it was ridiculous. I had to fill out an affidavit before they would send it to me. I guess to prove that like I was a legal resident of the United States.
Yeah, some legal mumbo jumbo, I'm sure. Yeah,
of course. But the thing it is a heavy like son of a gun. Like it is like if you were to drop this, A, it would shatter, and B, like it would hurt. Like if it hit a part of your body. And they sent it to me, and the company that made it, I think, is a company called Chronicle, which I'd never heard of before.
Okay.
And it didn't, because you put batteries into it and you push a button and the eyes glow.
Nice.
And the battery, it didn't come with a battery like door compartment. So I contacted like the company that made it, and I'm like, hey, like I got this thing through a contest. Can you send me? Because it was a little piece of plastic with a screw. That's all I needed. They're like, oh, sure. Like just send us your address and we'll mail it to you. Thanks. And I contacted IMAX, and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if you're giving out any more of these, but just want to let you know, like mine didn't come with a battery door. And you're like, oh my God, we're so sorry. Like, this is so embarrassing. Here are 10 free IMAX movie tickets.
Nice.
And I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, but I didn't have any eyes. Rob knows, living in Nowheresville, New York. There's no IMAX movie theaters nearby. So I literally had to like piss away 10 free IMAX movie tickets.
Yeah, quick plug. Go listen to films Rob and Zack have seen together for how we had to travel to see IMAX movies.
Yes. And Rob got one of these as a birthday present one year. I'm like, Rob, how would you like some IMAX movie tickets? You're like, I don't have any IMAX movie theaters. I'm like, here's 5 free tickets. Yes, Rob got some of these. I think his response was, thanks, ?
I think you explained it to me, and you were like, I just need to get rid of these.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do my best.
It's like, I feel bad. Like, they gave me free tickets. I'm like, I don't know what to do with them. It's like, I don't want them to expire. They're good.
I think you should have contacted them back and been like, how do these 10 free IMAX tickets replace the battery in this goddamn bus? That would have been my concern.
Well, I think I told them that like I was getting one through the manufacturer. Again, they sent me this thing, and I think they were giving out like more than one, because I know they had the one I got was like a specialty thing, but they had one that was signed by like all the cast members at the premiere.
Oh, okay.
Like I know there's a picture somewhere. If you Google it, you can find it, where it's J.K. Simmons. Like you could do your own like Sergeant Candy, but with J.K. Simmons. Okay. There's one of him posing next to it, and I think that's what it was. Like, they had like Arnold sign it, Jason Clarke, Amelia Clarke, Jai Courtney, J.K. Simmons. I think like Alan Taylor signed it. Everybody signed it, and I think that's what it was. It was like they were giving out more than one. I just told them, it's like, because I think I had like an email address, and I'm like, hey, just heads up. I'm like, you might just want to know about this.
Okay.
Again, I think I was getting one. So they didn't bother me. The company sent me one. They sent me the little plastic door. They sent me the screw. So it took 10 seconds. Just put it in.
Good.
But no, that's kind of exciting with it. So I go to the movie theater, and like any good movie going like theater story, I went to the theater, which we saw the Avengers Endgame experiment in. And something happened previously where I bought a ticket through Fandango for Jurassic World. They charged me for it. So I had they owed me a free ticket, but they couldn't give me a free ticket. They had to keep it in a log in order for me to get the free ticket. Instead of whatever it was, they couldn't just refund me what they charged. They had me go to the front desk, and they had my name in a notebook. And they're like, we're expecting you. And I'm like, okay, what movie do you want to see? I'm like, Terminator. And I was wearing my Terminator 3 t-shirt, which I forgot to mention when we recorded our Terminator 3 episode. I have a
Yeah.
Rob got sent a very classy picture of me brushing my teeth in my bathroom mirror of me wearing my Terminator 3 shirt with the caption, I forgot to mention I was wearing this all day today for this recording.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a Terminator 3 shirt, folks, I got from Universal Studios. I was wearing that. I was beyond excited. I was lukewarm on it at the time. I really love Arnold in the movie. Everybody is severely miscast.
Oh,
I have no idea what was going through everybody's heads when they were making this movie. It feels like the thing that meme you see on the internet where someone's like, oh, I gave a computer 100 hours of Olive Garden commercials and had it write its own Olive Garden commercial script. That's what this feels like. It feels like a weird greatest hits of the Terminator franchise, but it's intended for newcomers.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I felt that same way also, and especially with the people being miscast. And then I don't. It's not that Arnold was miscast.
No,
because
he's perfect.
He's perfect, but they gave him the wrong dialogue. I felt because he can't say the word cellular. He's like John Connor has been changed on the cellular level, and it's like why did you give him that line?
At the end of the war, Skynet was trying to develop a new type of infiltration unit. By infecting human subjects with machine-phased matter, it restructures and rebuilds human tissue on a cellular level for maximum combat utility.
Yeah, there's... after a while, the problem with Arnold is that, Arnold's become a character. Back in the 90s, he was a caricature of himself. Now, he's, 10, paces beyond... what's beyond a caricature? He's beyond that now. It's almost, self-satirical almost.
Yeah.
And... I think that's what it's even the whole thing with the it's nice to meet you, Kyle Reese, with the smile, and that was a big punching bag moment for this movie. People are like, oh, this movie's so bad it has to recycle deleted scenes from Terminator 2, and I like that sequence. I think it's cute, it's charming. That's what it's supposed to be. A lot of things that people point to in this movie and claim as to why it's bad aren't the reasons why it's bad.
Okay.
Because, like you said, Emilia Clarke and Jai Courtney, and I don't blame them. I think they're doing the best. They're doing the best they were given.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them. They were handed the script. They were going to be in a new term, and especially in Hollywood in 2014-15. The big thing now is that every actor needs their own movie franchise. Is a perpetual paycheck.
Yep.
So the idea of being told oh, you can be Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese and you're guaranteed three paychecks. I don't blame them for them taking that deal.
No, not at all.
But it's the notion of that they are so wrong. And I get, again, we talked about it in previous episodes where it's, who's going to be our new modern young female crusader? Of course it's Emilia Clarke. She's Dragon Woman from Lord of Chairs.
Yep.
Of course. On paper, but it's that J.J. Abrams thing of it's the producers talking. It's the what do I call it? The chocolate milkshake dilemma, or it's just you just keep putting things into the blender, and it's all these things that complement each other in an immediate sense, but when combined with everything else, it falls apart.
Well, I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day and I was explaining this because you said this a bajillion times on this podcast, and I was asking them if there's a true name for that because it is a type of fallacy, but we couldn't think of a true one. But I think the best name we came up, or the closest one that exists, is that it's the slippery slope fallacy. Oh. But it's more like the next step fallacy than slippery slope. Because the slippery slope fallacy is if you let one step go through, what's at the end is going to cause problems. Where we're talking about more, it's each step that gets added on is in the wrong direction, right?
Well, it's the chocolate pretzels dilemma. That's what I've always referred to it as. It's the idea of what goes you have chocolate. What can you combine that with? Pretzels, chocolate covered pretzels. Oh, what goes good with pretzels? Beer cheese. What goes good with beer cheese? You can put it on a hamburger. What goes good with a hamburger? French fries. What goes good with French fries? A pickle spear. What goes good with a pickle spear? And you just constantly keep doing that. And all these things make sense on you connect them, but at the same time, you build this monstrosity that you put it all together and none of it works. Again, in a very, what would you call it? In a short-sighted sense, it works. But yes. the more extrapolated, the more you pull it out, it falls apart. And that's why I've always referred to it as I know I changed the wording of it depending on what kind of context I'm using it in, but the way I've described it the best is it's the chocolate pretzels dilemma. And you can apply it to anything. It's something that in an immediate sense it works, but over the course of it all, just when you look small picture it works, big picture.
Yep. Yeah, I think you have explained it excellently throughout, on this episode and other podcasts. I guess what I'm saying is I don't like the name.
No, but the problem is that until you think of a better name for it, it's gonna have to suffice.
Okay. I'm gonna work on next step fallacy because I don't think it's slippery slope. I think that's subtly different. So
well, the whole idea of slippery slope too is that one bad decision leads to another until eventually all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's what this is, because like, oh, Emilia Clarke's like one of the biggest actresses on the face of this earth in 2014. Hiring her is not a bad call. Then you have like Jai Courtney. And the joke was, for the longest time, Jai Courtney had the best like agent in Hollywood because he kept getting cast in all these big franchise things.
Yep.
Terminator, Divergent,
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, again, the guy got around. He was in I think he started out in Spartacus, was his really big like claim to fame. And then like, even though Jason Clarke, he showed up in a couple of things here and there, but he was up and coming. He was a star of like the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He'd been around, he'd done things. And it was like, all these things make sense. You're bringing Arnold back. You're getting a director from Game of Thrones. You have Jimmy C on board. Like, we'll finally play it here. The Jimmy C clip he did, like in like promo of this, because this is the film. This was the first sequel that got his blessing.
I had no idea what to expect sitting down. I wasn't involved in the making of the film. I didn't direct it. I didn't write it. I'm just a fanboy. So I'm in a dark theater. Movie starts.
The machine sent a Terminator back to the time before the war to kill my mother, Sarah Connor.
And I start to see things I recognize. It's being very respectful of the first two films.
Nice night for a walk, eh?
Your clothes. Give them to me. Now.
And then all of a sudden it just swerves.
I've been waiting for you.
And now I'm going on a journey. I feel like the franchise has been reinvigorated, like this is a renaissance.
Come with me if you want to live. Everything's changed.
If you look at why the films became classics, they had characters that you like.
The Terminator. It is nice to meet you.
I've been trying to teach him to blend in. I know it needs work.
The new film, which in my mind I think of as the third film, we see Arnold take the character even farther. Everybody responds to Sarah Connor.
Nice try.
For women, I think she represents a kind of empowerment. And yet there's a vulnerability there, because that strength comes at a price.
John.
Hi, Mom.
How can you be here?
We went from, in the first film, the Terminator being the worst badass in history, to in the second film, him being almost a father figure.
What are you doing?
John!
The idea of taking John Connor and flipping him to the bad guy.
What have they done to my son?
Survival was what you taught me.
It's pretty cool because you got to riff against expectation. It's all about the twists.
I'm not machine, not man, I'm more.
If you like the Terminator films,
Run!
I'll be back.
You're gonna love this movie.
I guess I should read from the Entertainment Weekly article for Terminator Salvation, that is. This is what it says. When McG signed on to direct Salvation, he knew that hardcore fans of the franchise would cry sacrilege. So he decided that he needed the Godfather's blessing. He went down to the set of Jimmy C's Avatar, hoping to get a benediction or at least some advice from the man who created T1 and T2, but he walked away empty-handed. Quote, Cameron was very cordial, but he didn't give me his blessing. He did tell me, I know how you feel. When I directed Aliens, I was following Alien and the mighty Ridley Scott, and people thought, who is Jimmy C? All he's made is Piranha 2. And yet, strangely enough, if we haven't already played it, we'll have played it now. The video of Jimmy C giving his blessing for this, which is part of the marketing materials. This was a promo that they put on YouTube and was being shared for like one morning. On the back of the Blu-ray box, it says in big bold letters, "You are going to love this movie. Jimmy C, director of Terminators 1 and 2.
Oh God.
The biggest joke of this movie was Jimmy C was its loudest champion.
Man, yeah, that's upsetting.
And the weird thing too, that I didn't mention the Terminator Salvation part of this conversation. It was Jimmy C who recommended to McG to hire Sam Worthington.
Mm-hmm.
Because Avatar was being filmed in 2006.
Yeah.
Everybody forgets Avatar was filmed like 3 plus years before it came out. And Sam Worthington had his stuff all in the can. And when Big G sat down with Jimmy C's like, you should hire this Sam Worthington guy. He's pretty good.
Okay.
So there you go, folks. That's like, again, that's how you got Sam Worthington. It was another Jimmy C thing.
Good old Jimmy C.
Goddamn Jimmy C. But no, like getting back to Genisys though, like again, that's the weird thing of this movie, because I watched the movie, and even though it's a convoluted mess, and I think I even stated it, and I forgot about this in the review I sent Rob, and we'll link to it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Was that when I was sitting through this movie is so busy with hitting you over the head or assuming that you understand Terminator lore.
Yes.
Yet it's also being positioned as a new jumping off point for new fans.
Yeah, and I think that this being, of course, the last in the 5 that we're watching until the new one comes out and we see it in theaters, that was a big turnoff for me. Like, literally, it got to a point in this movie where one of my notes is basically me saying, isn't it so much fun to watch a movie that's almost entirely tributes to movies you've already seen? It's the best and not boring at all. Yeah. Like, I couldn't stand... Like, Emilia Clarke's first 2 lines, if you don't count the flashback, or the flash timeline alternate bullshit at the beginning, if you don't count that, Emilia Clarke's first 2 lines are pulled directly from the first movie. It's "Come with me if you want to live," and "Come on, soldier." And I was like, fuck. And, I guess I should say, Zach, you were absolutely right. When we get to see that picture of Emilia Clarke as Linda Hamilton, that was just painful. You were so right.
That's great. I was watching it, and I'm disappointed it only shows up once. I'm like, that show's been the movie for 2 hours. Just have that, so I could just giggle and like cackle at it.
I love that it's like more zoomed in than the original picture. Like they felt they needed to like show off more of Emilia Clarke's face. And I mean, I don't think she's terrible looking, but I'm glad that her eyebrows and her hair color matched in this movie. I guess that's the best I can say.
Well, she's okay. She's probably, oh God, in a movie filled with jarring moments, it's hard to say that like she's the most jarring. But the problem is that like she's living up to one of the most iconic female characters in cinematic history. Mm-hmm. And you have like, and especially like Linda Hamilton, with the help of Jimmy C, reinvented that character. So it's rare to have a great character to begin with, then reinvent the character so well, and then force another actress where it's 100% out of her wheelhouse to try to like play an alternate, like, oh God, what would you even call it? Like, okay, no, I guess an alternate version of that character. And it's like, I don't blame her though, but it's just like some stuff like, she'll say something and she goes, "Bite me." And it's like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, that made no sense, because Arnold knocks out Kyle Reese and he's like, "We need to move. Arguing with him is not helpful." And her response is, "Bite me." And it's like what? Like, that's a good decision he just made. Why are you complaining about it?
But this is a thing, though, that I'm not... Again, it's a goofy line, yes. But I was never aware of it until this discussion, is that Sarah Connor in the first film is 18 years old.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, okay, how an 18-year-old... And again, it's the idea they're trying to make this play into... Again, they were making Terminator Genisys to capture a new audience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's the sort of thing, like, imagine, again, was Stranger Things around yet by this time?
2015?
I don't think so.
Maybe not. Maybe it was a year out, maybe?
Whatever. We're in that time span, though, of the culture. And considering how incestuous Hollywood is, like, if you're trying to appeal to a bunch of 14, 15-year-olds that feel like the 80s are this, like, bygone, like, Nirvana snapshot in time of culture, that's the sort of thing that they think will appeal to them. It's pandering. And like the idea of like, we have a point where like they're all like loading up with all their weapons, and they have a Terminator hunting them, and she puts headphones on. It's like, why is it? But guess what, though? They're trying to pander to like, oh, I'm a teenager, and when I'm stressed out, I listen to music too. It's kind of like the Steve Buscemi thing with him, like the skateboard and the backwards hat. Hello, fellow kids, what is up?
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing where it's like, okay, we are taking Dad's franchise and we're trying to make it hip and modern. We're casting Emilia Clarke, Jai Courtney. That's what it feels like. This movie, I think the best way to describe it is what is up, fellow kids?
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Absolutely. And it does not fit. It's not something that, I know me, and I think you're in the same boat. We don't need to see this. This is not interesting to us, but I get what you're saying. It's pandering to it's the push off for the new generation.
And that's what it is. Like, even in the article that I wrote, is that like, I don't remember this at all. It's fine. I kind of remember it now that, I reread it after like 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. It's like, I remember seeing this and a mother walked in. She had to be at least like the kids were, I think, like 13, 14-ish. So she had to be at least like in her early 40s. Mm-hmm. And I saw them though. And the kids, like, you could tell the kids did not that like they were texting or anything. So I think they were sitting behind me. But I remember them walking into the theater being like, this isn't for them. Like, This is like, they must have been so like, other than just like explosions, they must have just been so bored out of their mind, either because like you can't track anything in this movie because it's so overly convoluted. And I even saw there was an interview that Jimmy C did for Terminator Dark Fate that came out in the last couple of weeks, and he was explaining how this one's going to be different than all the others. And he's like, oh, we're going to make this one much more simplistic than the previous ones. And at the time, this is before I rewatched Genisys, I'm like, simplistic? It's like, what's convoluted about any of the Terminator movies? They're all pretty straightforward if you can just follow a basic movie plot. Yeah. Now I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, they go back to 1984, then they go back to like 2017, but no, they want to go to 2017. But then there's this, there's that, and then there's alternate Cyborg's dad and Cyborg, and it's like it's Joe Morton, but it's not Joe Morton. And
I'm so glad that you bring it up that Cyborg is in this movie. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like Skynet's no longer Skynet, it's Genisys, but they keep calling it Skynet, even though now it's Genisys.
Yeah,
and Matt Smith is here for some weird reason. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I know, I know this series like the back of my hand, and I'm like, why is this so convoluted? Like, it's turning me off. Like, I'm the person that has a Terminator endoskeleton, like figure on my desk and a bust, and you're confusing me.
Yeah.
Like, it's really
that's a good metric to rate it by.
Yeah, like I said, I do enjoy this movie because like the first, like, this kind of almost got like Aristocats level for like the first like 2/3, 3/4. Like, I was genuinely losing my mind. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I know these things. It was kind of like being like in a half remembered dream where it's like I'm seeing things like it feels like John Connor and Kyle Reese, but doesn't look like John Connor or Kyle Reese.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is Sarah Connor so like overly attractive in this? Because I'm not over. Again, I think what's her name, Emilia Clarke. She's an attractive female. Like, she's a pretty woman, but I've never found her like overly pretty. And in this, I'm like, oh man, this is like wifey material right here. And I'm like, Sarah Connor shouldn't be this attractive. She should be like, especially if she's been raised by a Terminator for 10 years. She should be a little bit more run down. Like, she's like, her face is so smooth and just like put together. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, and that's one thing about even Linda Hamilton, the first Terminator. Like, yes, she's pretty, but like after like the tech noir sequence, she's pretty like run down looking. Like, again, her hair's like all coiffed and just done, but at the same time, you can just tell she looks like she's worn out mentally.
Yeah, and when we get that setup with the the waitressing scene, and we get that she's feeling that pressure of society and stuff. Absolutely, here it's just, I'm a warrior, deal with it, haha.
Yeah, and she doesn't look like a warrior, other than just like, oh, she has guns.
Yep, exactly.
And even one thing, even though like my father used to do this, and I absolutely hated it. I guess it's only appropriate that it's in a conversation I talk about with McG. Is that like when the first like Charlie's Angels movie came out, directed by McG? I just want to keep putting that out there. I remember like my father watched that, and my father, like, for somebody, and Rob knew my father to a certain degree. He was an old man. He was an old fart, and he was that, what would we call it, benevolent sexism. He was a chauvinist. Like, not that he disliked women, though, but it was the idea that, like, oh, women cannot do everything men can do in a physical sense. And it wasn't because he was a bigot. It just, as somebody who was born in 1927, it was just baked into who he was. This generationally, it was baked into his identity. And things like Charlie's Angels drove him nuts because, like, oh, women can't be doing this. And I'm like, it's a movie. I remember telling him, like, when I saw that movie, I'm like, it's a movie. Who cares? Like, it's not meant to be real.
Yeah.
Yet, and I've always hated that. Like, oh, it's a movie. It's called suspension of disbelief. Yet there's a moment in this where, like, my father, like, part of my brain started where, like Rob stated, Sarah Connor, like, drives through the department store in, like, the armored, like, Brinks truck. She opens the door, has, like, a Desert Eagle pistol, which is like a RoboCop sized, like, pistol. Like, the thing, like, is the largest handgun you can have. And she's firing it with one hand or one arm. I'm like, she would barely be able to hold that up with both hands. Never mind, hold it with one arm and fire it numerous times. And I get it. It's a Terminator movie. Suspension of disbelief is the first thing when you turn the movie on. But of all the guns to give her, it's subconsciously something like that takes you out of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm like, I don't want to say she's too dainty. But
well, like, I mean, I don't think you're wrong in saying that because the movie even pokes fun at it. When they get to 2017 and they get arrested, there's the mugshot scene with Bad Boys, and they're like, Amelia Clarke is 5'2". Yep. And they point that out so heavily. And that's one of the points where I was like, so what do you want? Do you want her to be this great warrior? Do you want her to be this little person? We can only see her eyes in this shot, and she has to be protected by Arnold, who's like 7 feet tall in their make believe mugshot, you know?
Yeah. There's a reason why, folks, that like with Tom Cruise, every time he's like has to share a scene with another actor, they always make sure they do forced perspective, and he's always standing closer to the camera, and the other actors are further away.
Oh
like,
my God! Yeah,
that's a thing that he that's in his like all his contracts. I think it's like I forget. It's like in the behind the scenes thing for like one of the Mission Impossible movies, where it's like one of his like part of his team might be like Ving Rhames is like standing next to him. And I remember like reading somewhere Ving Rhames is like, I never like someone's like, oh, what's it like acting with Tom Cruise? He's like, I've never been within like 10 feet of that guy. Like every scene we have, he's like I'm like 6'5" and he's like 5'6". Like I'm not allowed to be near him for any scenes.
Have you ever seen Kevin Hart's wedding pictures with the forced perspective so he's as tall as his wife?
Oh no, I have not.
Oh God, it's bad. It's bad. I have to find it and send it to you on Facebook or something. But it's bad. Okay. That's what I'm thinking of right now.
But it's true though. Like you said, that's a very good point. Is like, why would you point it out? Because again, I don't think Amelia Clarke is dainty in the movie, but it's the idea that she is a petite woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just who she is. Like if you don't want it, then don't cast her. But Linda Hamilton, I think Linda Hamilton's like what, maybe 5'6", 5'7". But when you look at Linda Hamilton in the Terminator films, she never comes across as like petite or dainty.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's just, again, I don't blame Amelia Clarke, but again, I think she's too pretty in this. I don't want to say like it's like other things where it's like almost like distractingly pretty, but it's the idea like it's not appropriate for her to be looked at like kind of glammed up. And the same goes even for Jai Courtney. Like I think he's like the producers are just as guilty of it with him as they are for her, in that like he's Kyle Reese and how we talked in the first Terminator discussion. Like he is so malnourished. Like even how we're introduced to him in the first film, he falls from like 5 feet out of the air, and you can feel his pain reacting to that. And that exact sequence happens here. Yet Jai Courtney's just, oh God, skipping along.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, he's just going through the motions.
He's never in anguish. I think the only time he's in genuine anguish in this movie is when he sees Arnold in the back of the Brinks truck and he starts freaking out. And even that, like, is relative to everything else in the movie. Mm-hmm. It doesn't compare to anything that Michael Biehn does with the rest of the previous film. It's, I don't know, like everybody in this movie feels like they've never seen a Terminator film and they were just going off the script, which is possible. Like that has happened before with like filmmakers where they tell the actors like, don't watch any of the other movies or any of the source material. We want you to go off like what we're telling you. But even Jason Clarke is a bad John Connor. Like,
yeah,
guys,
I didn't believe him as John Connor in the slightest. You know, even though he turns out to be a cyborg, it's like still this is not what I imagined this character to be at all.
well, even like early John Connor, like from the beginning of the movie, like even that, I'm like, I don't buy this. Like, he's not John Connor. If it weren't for the scar, he's just a guy.
Yeah,
he's Guy Connor. He's Guy McFace. Now that's a Cinemoddities throwback.
Oh my
folks.
God, I'm so glad you said that because Guy McFace
is every male character in the movie.
Well, it starts with a G and an MC. Like, is Mick G Guy McFace? Did we just break it? Did we break the code right here? Somebody call Michael Drosnin and get the Bible code. See if Mick G is encoded with Guy McFace. And Terminator.
So many references from Cinemoddities. Remember, folks, Cinemoddities is only like 18 months old, but like we have so many inside jokes now. They're just streaming. Like, Rob, where's the Hummer? Maybe the Hummer. You know what? It connects. The Hummer. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a big proponent of Humvers and Humvees.
Oh my God. Oh,
it's
that's
all
great.
Connected.
It is. It absolutely is.
Hummers, Humvee, claws, blowjobs in the bathroom of the convenience store.
Oh man. Watching the front counter. We should have mentioned that in Terminator 3 when he's shopping for sunglasses.
It's all connected. It's been here. Dean Norris, SWAT team leader, Uncle Daddy. All right, folks. Cinemoddities is over after this series. No Monstober. We figured it out. The Matrix code is actually starting to break in front of the monitor right now.
Yeah, I think next week's episode is going to be like just 15 seconds long, and it's going to be like a computerized voice going, Rob and Zack committed suicide.
No, next week's episode is the architect comes out and explains the hidden meaning to all of Cinemoddities' choices. If you enter this door, you will continue to the Monstober series. Everything will be all right. The cycle will repeat. But if you open this door... yeah. We figured it out, folks. We cracked the code.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, Jason, whatever his name is, Jason Clarke, no affiliation to Emilia Clarke. I don't want to say bad because again, I think he's just working off the script he was given. Even though Christian Bale is at least giving it his trademark like intensity, Jason Clarke's just like, I'm John Connor. I am the hero of the resistance.
Yep.
Tonight is the last night. And then like you have them attack like even like in the Jimmy C clip, which we definitely have played at this point, where he talks about like things I've seen things before. These are all things I recognize. And you have them like storming the Skynet compound. And like even that, like it doesn't feel exciting. Like it's like, oh, we have to get to Skynet before they turn on the time machine advice or machine thingy. And yet like we can see the doors closing, we can see the device or the time displacement machine. Mm-hmm. Yet like when we eventually get into the time displacement machine, it's like 3 or 4 stories below ground.
Yeah. Yep.
And then like John Connor's like chasing it and Kyle's like, no, John. And like a giant like hunter killer gets shot out of the sky, but is somehow able to like deploy its like sentry beforehand.
Yeah.
Which I thought, which is a cool visual, but it's like, I'm right here. Come kill me. They all get like deactivated at the exact same time. And it's like, oh, okay. But I do want to point out one specific moment from this sequence that drove me nuts from the very first time I ever saw this movie. It drives me nuts to this day. Is that their plan for getting into Skynet is to hack an endoskeleton and have it drive a Terminator truck into the compound.
Yep.
Which might be, I remember, I guess, I don't think, okay, Rob had to do this in real time now, much like whatever we were doing a couple of weeks ago, where I had him looking up in real time. Type into Google Images, Terminator Genisys, Entertainment Weekly.
Okay.
Because even though that doesn't tie in directly to this, I think it was in that same spread that Entertainment Weekly did.
Oh God, Terminator Genisys, Terminator Weekly.
Now that's the magazine after the Beckett ones that came out for Terminator 3.
Okay, it gave me almost all the same results, so okay.
Okay, it's the pictures of them all screaming, right?
Yeah. Oh God,
okay.
what the fuck is this?
We'll get to that in due time. But part of this spread, which we will get to, explaining the main like spread of it all, they had a screenshot or a snapshot or still, and it was a Terminator behind a steering wheel.
Okay.
And I remember thinking when I saw that, going like, what the hell kind of sense does that make? A Terminator driving a truck? Why would a Terminator be driving a truck? And I go, whatever. Maybe it's a scene from like from the past, like the 1984 or whatever it was. It's not the future. So I'm sitting down to the movie, and John Connor's grand plan to getting inside Skynet is to hack an endoskeleton and have it drive to the perimeter of Skynet until the robots can sense or X-ray vision it to find out that its CPU is being modded. But I find so interesting is that they sense it because there's a wire coming out of it to Kyle Reese behind this, like the driver's seat with a little laptop. And I'm like, they're able to reprogram Terminators to go back in time and protect younger versions of themselves. They couldn't program this thing to drive a car?
I see it. Yeah.
That's not bad enough. But much like how I complained with Terminator Salvation, it's the notion of why is Skynet designing trucks that need to be driven by physical Terminators? Like, if I was Skynet, I am this all-powerful AI that was able to get the jump on mankind and annihilate them. I should see a truck appearing. That alone should be destroyed.
Yep, blow it up
immediately. Never mind a truck being driven by a Terminator. If there ever was a warning sign of, oh, this is a Trojan horse. Like, this is like a Wile E. Coyote level, just like ploy to get inside.
Yes.
Like, Wile E. Coyote would look at this and be like Acme wouldn't even carry this in the catalog. That's how bad of a plan this is.
This would be an Acme knockoff, yeah.
Like, how many deliveries is Skynet getting? Think about it. This is the post-apocalypse. Look at the terrain. The terrain is just like rubble and skulls. Terminators would not be transporting things over land. They'd be flying them.
Yep.
Never mind, because it's more practical. It'd be more efficient.
Yep.
If I was Skynet and any sort of this like vehicle like knocked on my front door, I'd be like, like, and never mind, because I know you can make an argument to like the 3 Terminator Genisys defenders there are on this earth, being like, oh, this was all planned by like Matt Smith Terminator to like lure them in. But then you think too, why is nobody in the Resistance being like, we've never seen a Skynet convoy before? What would make us think that this would work?
Yeah, exactly. Just because John Connor's the hero, his plan has to work.
It's like, I don't get it. Like that. Okay. Yeah.
I don't get it either. I was definitely angered by that, because all this stuff with the Terminators is supposed to be these supreme killing machines, and one of them can't even kill Jai Courtney, and he's crawling on the ground in like a few minutes after the scene we're talking about. But the thing that really hit me in this movie, as like I screamed at the TV, was they go forward in time to 2017, yes. And they go and they show up, and the first thing we see in 2017 is the Genisys billboard that's like, you got 36 hours till Genisys gets deployed. And I'm like, why didn't they go back like a month early? And I was kind of okay with that. I was angry about it, but yeah, they had this prototype time machine. I guess it might not be that accurate, but it had to be accurate for Arnold to find them in the future, whatever. But I always have a problem with that. Like when movies artificially insert ticking clocks that don't need to be there. Yeah. And then maybe 20 minutes later, the movie literally gives me a middle finger when the timer just randomly snaps to 11 minutes. And then again, it snaps to like 5 minutes. And they literally have lines of dialogue where it's like, the timer just changed. We only have 5 minutes now. And I'm like, fuck you. Fuck the whole concept of a ticking clock. If one, it's not going to move in real time, it's going to move in movie time. And 2, it's just going to change constantly. Like this was, I hated this, Zach. I hated it so much.
Well, okay, this is the defense I'll give, because I've heard that complaint a lot with this movie, being like, oh, why wouldn't they show up like a month prior to like Genisys starting? my thing is that you could say that about every single film in the franchise. Like, why wasn't Kyle Reese sent back a year in advance?
Yes, and that's I get that because I'm thinking of the Stephen King book and show they made 11/22/63. Like the main character can only go back in time to sometime in the 50s, and that's it. And he like has to spend 10 plus years to get to 11/22/63 when Kennedy gets assassinated. And so I get that it's like it's a speed up because there's no point in being like they went back 2 years early and did nothing for 2 years. Now the movie picks up. I get that. But the timer, like literally Matt Smith child hologram going,
that's bad. That's bad.
Fuck you, I've evolved. And I'm like, oh Jesus. That was when I screamed. So I don't know if I screamed because I think it was like the movie lubed me up to be angry because they gave me that issue with the ticking clock that I had, which was minor, and I'm with you. You could say that about any movie in the Terminator franchise or a bunch of movies in general. But then they lubed me up to be angry, and then they were like, fuck it, time doesn't matter, just watch this film. I was like, that's literally what I'm saying, I guess, that I've spent, 10 plus hours watching Terminator movies.
Yep.
That fucking time doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's again. That's why this is like one of those movies. Like eventually, you have to like just kind of like let it like crash over you like a wave.
Yeah,
it's best not to get caught up in the minutiae of it because by the end, like the very, very end, nothing in the movie makes sense. It's like, oh, Arnold somehow survives the explosion because he gets thrown into the T-1000 goo.
The polyaluminate alloy.
I'm upgraded.
Polyalloy requires programming to take permanent form. Without the CPU, it is harmless.
And then we have the whole thing where they have to go like talk to like baby Kyle Reese. Mm-hmm. And then like they get in a little red truck and ride into like this like the sunset. Then we have the post-credit scene of like red Epcot ball Skynet and baby Matt Smith.
Oh yeah, fuck that. I hate it. The post-credit scene was just as bad as the twist. I'm doing air quotes in Salvation. Because like I said, the Salvation twist was, haha, the things you thought were good are bad. And the post-credit scene here was just like, they didn't do anything. Like basically everything was pointless because Skynet is still alive. And I get that that's kind of the premise of all these movies. But at the same time, I was like, why? Why even include this?
Probably it was the precursor to Infinity War. They were breaking new ground in 2015. Somewhere in Marvel Studios, Disney was watching, being like, see, we're gonna we can do the exact same stupid ass thing and make $2 billion off it.
This is like I think I might have said this to Zack when we weren't recording, but my concept of like nobody's just successful. Somebody else has to fall on their sword first, trying to do something. And it's like, this was the movie that fell on their sword that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe be fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh, God. So I did want to mention quickly before we get to the performance of the film, two other actors. Miles Dyson, of course, it's not Joe Morton, but I have to mention that it's Courtney B. Vance. ADA Ron Carver from Law & Order Criminal Intent. It was great to see him because I've never seen him in anything but like this, the OJ drama, and Criminal Intent. I wanted to ask you, have you seen, so she had a minor part in this, but the female detective that like arrests Amelia Clark and Kyle Reese, so it's like just before J.K. Simmons shows up. She turns out to be a Terminator, I think. That's like Arnold hears her through the one-way glass and kills her before she can kill J.K. Simmons.
That's Asian Terminator. That's John Connor Terminator.
Yes, Asian Terminator. No, I'm talking about the woman.
Oh no, but you mean earlier when before Arnold shows up?
No. When Arnold is in the interrogation room in 2017. Oh. Like he blows people away through the one-way mirror to kill this woman.
Oh. I thought she was I thought that's the Asian woman.
She is Asian, yes.
Oh, okay.
I guess she's a Terminator. They don't really explain that, but Arnold prevents her from killing J.K. Simmons. So her name is Sandrine or Sandrine Holt. Okay. She's only been in a few things here or there. I wanted to get a sense of what Zack thinks of her because, once again, the only thing I really know her from is she's like the new psychologist on Law and Order's VU, like in the last season, because BD Wong is like, fuck this show, I hate this show, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And so they have to get new psychologists every season, and she's the newest one, and she is so condescending. Like, she comes off, like, she'll be, like, interviewing in SVU universe, like, 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds that got molested, and she's coming off as condescending to them, and it's really unappealing to me. But she has so little to do in this movie, and when I looked at her kind of filmography, she has nothing to do in anything she's ever been in. Do you know her from anywhere else?
I do not.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like she's just, we need to fill quotas, we need diversity, this works. Like, it seems like she just gets placed into things, and she never has anything to do, and then when she does something, it's totally off the mark. I'll have to report back when season 21 of ZVU starts, and she comes back and, like, punches a little kid or something. Maybe they'll do something interesting with it.
I wouldn't count on it.
No, definitely not. The most interesting thing I can hope for in ZVU is that they get Ice-T to call someone an asshole every now and then.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know she was on something. When she started zoning out, I tried to help her. I took her to the hospital. That was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
You heard that, Sarge, right?
Yeah. So you are the person who brought her to the hospital? Okay, you're free to go.
What, really?
No, asshole. Sit down.
So now we have to talk about J.K. Simmons, the saving grace of this movie. When he comes into frame, when he does the whole, like, you know, he's the Dr. Silberman type of this film. Sure. I definitely got that connection. But when he shows up and he's screaming at the other cops in the parking lot, where he's like, these people were there. They were there in 1984. I saw them all these years ago. And they're just like, have you been drinking? My note was, and I know Zach can relate to this, don't you just hate when someone won't let you be a good detective just because you're drunk?
I think we've all been through that struggle.
Right off the bat, he has that great scene where he comes into the hospital room. He's like, you were there. You were this, that, the other thing. And they're like all humoring him. Jai Courtney and Amelia Clark are like playing off of him to do their whole escape plan or whatever before John Connor shows up. And that's irrelevant. But I cannot express to you, Zach, how much I laughed when J.K. Simmons, the establishing shot is he's just leaning against a wall at the entrance of the hospital. Like, he's just standing there. And I think, like, the other detectives walk by, and he looks at them, and then Arnold walks in with a giant teddy bear, and there's, like, a little slow-mo, a zoom-in shot of Arnold, and J.K. Simmons that cuts back to him, and he doesn't, like, mumble anything or say, like, what the fuck, but his face conveys it so perfectly. And I lost it. I thought that was so funny that J.K. Simmons is just like, I'm guessing, a little drunk. He's finally found these people who he saw 30-something years ago that saved his life. And then this Terminator shows up with a giant teddy bear, and he just knows something's going to happen, and he's just like scoffs and walks away. I loved it. And then he's used sparsely throughout the rest of the movie, but in the best possible ways.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons was kind of like the Moon Blood Gordon, like, comment of this, where it's like, oh, like, for the inevitable sequels, he'd show up.
Yep,
yeah. I don't know why he signed on to this. I guess J.K. Simmons wants a paycheck like everybody else. Yeah. I think this is right after, this was filmed before he won his Oscar, but this is before, like, Detective Gordon in Justice League, and, oh god, him going back to Spider-Man, like, momentarily. I don't know. I'm guessing this is the idea, like, okay, it's like anything else. It's a steady paycheck.
Yeah. I got no problem with that. You know, this is what they do for a living, so they're doing it for a living. I get it.
Yeah, I don't get why why this character is even here, unless I would imagine he would probably be the one that figures out, because there is the entire subplot too of like, oh, why is there a T-1000 in 1984? Why was the T-800 sent back to like Sarah Connor when she was 9 years old? And there's even a point where the movie even explicitly asks, why is he here? And it's like, oh, those files have been erased. And the movie just drops it.
Yep.
Yeah, like, okay, then.
Absolutely.
I guess we have to wait to the sequel for that, which we'll never get.
Yep. So, of course, I would be remiss. I think we'd both be remiss if we don't mention probably the next to the Amelia Clark, you sound like a dying cat line, the other greatest line of the movie, where all hell's breaking loose. I think it's revealed John Connor's evil. Arnold's breaking these Amelia Clark and Jai Courtney out of I was about to say prison, out of the hospital. And there's just one scene, one camera angle. J.K. Simmons bursts in. You don't even know it's J.K. Simmons. You just see someone like bust open the door to the surveillance room of the hospital, which we had previously seen Arnold fucking flip a dude onto, which was a cool scene. I loved that, with these just literally flicks the chair with his foot and the guy goes flying. J.K. Simmons busts in, the dude's messed up, all the monitors are messed up, and J.K. Simmons says, "Goddamn time-traveling robots covered their goddamn tracks, I knew it!" and leaves, and that's the scene. And I was like...
Goddamn time-traveling robots covering up their goddamn tracks. Knew it.
I was like, I would be you. I would be you in this movie. Like, if I was living through this Terminator thing as, like, this tertiary character, I'd be saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, again, he gets shot at one point, too, right?
Yeah, near the end. Well, I think from the Asian Terminator shoots him in the shoulder.
Okay.
Because that's when he gives another great line of dialogue, because he finds Sarah Connor and he's like, "I want to help you. At least I think I want to help you. But you got to make this understandable to me." And she goes, "We're trying to save the world." And he pauses and goes, "I can work with that." And I'm like,
why are they always trying to kill you? I want to help you. I do, I think. But I got to understand. I know what's going on there has to be really, really complicated.
We're here to stop the end of the world.
I can work with that.
I'm like, perfect. Thank you. This is what I want. This is the silver lining to this movie, is this straight man and the nonsense that he gets thrown into. It was great.
Yeah, he's, like I said, it's nothing in this movie kind of gels. Everything's its own kind of layer.
Yeah, his performance does not work with the movie, but it stood out to me. That's why I'm highlighting it.
To be fair, nothing in the only okay, I guess it's the part I want to kind of like highlight the things I do like about this movie is I love Arnold. Arnold is used sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the action sequences are great. Some of them are not too cool, like the bus flip on the bridge, the whole bridge thing. Like, even though I do like him, he gets dragged out from underneath the bus and he goes flying down the road and goes crashing headfirst into the car, or the police car.
Get out.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. That's cool. Then, like, when he sits there, like he's driving and he gets out of it, like while it's moving. Like, okay, fine. That's cool. But no, Arnold's stuff is great. Like, they really kind of leaned into the paternal figure in this movie. It's like everybody. Yeah. That's probably the one genuinely clever element of this. They really leaned into the notion of him being a father.
I was definitely okay with that. I liked Arnold's performance. I didn't like that they refer to him as Pops, because to me, whenever you call someone Pops, it's the character from Regular Show, which we will have to get a clip in here because it is a very different character from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that took me out a little bit, but that, of course, is my own bias.
Good to know.
You want to know what's really scary? We could sit alone and be with our thoughts.
I got some bad news. The park is being audited. Pops tried to pay the park's taxes with lollipops. Oh. But I gave them more than enough! We already went over this, Pops. You pay taxes with money, not lollipops. Oh!
The action sequence where they lure the T-1000 into the, I don't even know what they call it, the hideout.
Yeah, the sewers, or the sewer aqueducts or something like that.
Whatever it is. And she goes into the room and they have all the acid kind of like from the barrels up above. Mm-hmm. And that was clever. The idea of like, oh, you have this, think about it, the entire plot of Terminator 2 is how are we going to destroy the liquid metal man? And in this, it's like, oh, have a bunch of acid, put it in like an open ceiling room, suspend the acid, and then get in the middle of it, have a little thing of like, what is it, nitrogen, to if any of it leaks, mm-hmm. and wait for him to get to the center of it. And then even how that scene kind of concludes, where you're watching him kind of like, he keeps trying to get up and he keeps dissolving and dissolving further. And then like he comes out for like one more attack and Arnold just goes right up to him and grabs him by the neck and lets his own God, his own leather jacket, hoodie, and like flesh and part of his like endoskeleton arm get melted as he just deliberately holds the character in the acid. I'm like, that's neat.
Yeah, definitely.
You look at the marketing for this movie, like it's some of the most just like bland marketing. We'll have to touch on the Entertainment Weekly thing in a moment, but you could have done a really great like teaser poster of like an old Arnold Schwarzenegger with like a exposed metal arm. That could have been a teaser poster.
Yeah.
And that's infinitely more interesting than anything you could plug Emilia Clarke into or Jai Courtney. But again, they weren't. That's the thing about this movie. I don't know who they were making this movie for, because it's trying so hard to get the marketing and the filmmaking aspect of it is trying so hard to get new people on board. Yet the film is firmly rooted in like hard Terminator lore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then going to like just real quick, the Entertainment Weekly pictures I had Rob look at.
Yep.
This was like the first piece of marketing they had for the movie. And I think this came out like in November of 2014. And this people were dying laughing at this.
It is pretty funny.
The joke was how on earth did Paramount's PR department sign off on this? Because it's embarrassing. It's all of them. It's Matt Smith, Jason Clarke, Emilia Clarke, and Jai Courtney, and they're all just like screaming, holding futuristic weapons.
Yeah, the Matt Smith one is the weird one to me because it's like he doesn't hold a weapon at any point in the movie, right?
Yeah, not that we notice. The Matt Smith thing is when this movie, it's oddly enough, much like what's happening right now with the Rise of Skywalker and Matt Smith's like alleged involvement in this, even though everybody knew Matt Smith was in this, and this was right after, I think this was like within a year of him like leaving Doctor Who.
Okay.
It was the thing of, like they're keeping his role a secret. It's like, Matt Smith is playing a super secret role in Terminator Genisys. What could it be? And there was like so much speculation about this. And I think his part in this was meant to be a red herring.
Okay.
And once again, I think he was going to be it's your producer mindset. Our protagonist is Emilia Clarke, the star of the biggest show on television right now. Matt Smith is going to be our antagonist of this trilogy. Him being like the king of like nerdom right now.
Yep.
And that's what it was. It was this very just like, again, cobbled together marketing of like, all these different elements, trying to plug them in. And that marketing though, I think a lot of people who were on board with the idea of a new Terminator film, because again, even though a lot of people dislike 3 and 4, people were at least still on board with getting Arnold back. That was one thing that Genisys had going for it that Salvation didn't. It's like, we're righting the wrongs of Salvation.
Yeah.
And then when you have that, everyone goes like, A, where's Arnold? And B, this photo shoot is so awkward. There's nobody who looks at that and goes, I want to see this movie. And that was kind of one of the very first, like probably the first canary in the coal mine dying of like, this movie's going to have problems.
Okay, fair.
So yeah, that's the story. That's the context of the Entertainment Weekly picture. So folks,
when I Googled this, I was scrolling down and one of the images, the image itself isn't anything special, but the caption of the website underneath the image is Terminator Genisys will be insane and Matt Smith's role confirms it.
Because that was the rumor. Because the rumor came out ahead of time that like, he's playing the living embodiment of Skynet. Everyone's like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Living embodiment of Skynet. What is that? And I remember that leaking, people being like, no, they're going weird. I remember that was part of the thing too. A lot of people were having, like, the leaks were having a hard time, like, describing what the movie was about because it didn't make any sense. And it was like, they're going back, because they did, like, people didn't know that, like, we're going back to, like, 1984. And there was, like, talk about, two of them going back to, like, 1992 or 1997, the events of Terminator 2. There was, like, talk about that. And obviously that part didn't happen, but it was a movie that you could tell just the warning signs were there.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, going back to things I like that. I like art. I like the acid. I like the last 30 minutes. I really like everything from the helicopter sequence. I like that, the way like he deliberately kind of like tips it over the side of the building, and we have the chase. What was it? Also, they have the oh god, I don't even know what it is. They do a really bad job of describing it. It's like a device used for breaching locked doors, and it has like no gunpowder,
no shrapnel or anything like that. And it's just like, oh, okay, I guess we need a god explosive at this point in the movie.
I really like the moment where like Kyle Reese is like, I need it. It's like, Pops, I can get you a clear shot. Can you take him out? Affirmative. And it's like, Emilia Clarke's like, where are you going? And it's like, I'll be back. And I loved how it's like I said, they ruined it because they played it in every single trailer for this movie. But even rewatching it and knowing it was coming, I love that. The idea of the Terminator using himself as a human missile to crash into a moving helicopter from a moving helicopter after saying the most iconic Terminator line ever with the ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. Like, we'll insert the clip here, but like, I'm like, that's great.
You got this? I'll be back.
What?
Right. I'm like, that's you know what, that's what you want out of a Terminator film. Like, and it's, as much as I complain with Star Wars how like I hate the nostalgia, I hate the like stroking the fans like egos, that works for me in a way that it doesn't work for me like when it comes to Star Wars, because like I guess I've never taken Terminator so seriously that like it's beyond just like, oh god, eating itself.
Yeah.
So the idea of having an older Arnold come back to his most iconic role at this point, 30 years later, and you have him doing that, he goes, and it's neat. It's a sort of fan service that you want, but the problem though is that it should be used sparingly. Like, it's like Arnold saying, I'll be back, while crashing into a moving helicopter.
Yeah.
Good fan service. Emilia Clarke screaming, now soldier! Bad fan service.
100%. Yeah, I'm with you.
And then going to like even the end where I think they land a helicopter and she's like, I hope Pops will be all right. And Kyle Reese is like, he might be at the bottom of the lake, but he'll be fine, I'm sure. I'm like, that's a good one-liner. And Jai Courtney plays it pretty well. And they go inside, and of course, John Connor, Jason Clarke's waiting for them, and he's monologuing, and Arnold has a rotor from the helicopter wing, throws it through the lobby, and comically impales Jason Clarke, John Connor, and is like, John Connor talks too much. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, as much as I complain about the Captain America picking up Thor's hammer moment in the that's the Zachary equivalent of Captain America picking up Thor's hammer. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, give me more of that. I want more of that. If you're going to give me fan service, do fan service that's charming.
Yeah.
Not this freaking derivative nonsense or the, oh, good Lord, the theoretical. Theoretical. Like, if it wouldn't require us to literally rewatch this entire movie again, we would play a super cut of all the times they say theoretical. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. The rule of nines, it seems.
Ah, dear. So yeah, that's there's probably there's more I can say about Terminator Genisys, but for the sake of time, I'm going to forego them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Is that, you know, we had to get through these, and we did, thankfully.
Yes, we did. So I guess, Rob, with that being said, Cinemoddities and/or late night movie for Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genisys.
Okay, I was going to ask earlier if we were going to group these or separate them. Okay, so I have a new dynamic in the spreadsheet to play with.
Oh boy.
But I didn't ask if we were going to separate them or not earlier, because at least for this, Cinemoddities and Late Night, I am in agreement, I think, between the two movies. And I'm going to go all four squares, no. No to both movies on Cinemoddity, and no to both movies as Late Night. And in terms of Cinemoddities, I think my answers kind of wrap up, or my reasons wrap up in the same vein for all of them. Salvation, I thought, was just a movie. It was an action film. It didn't really do much for me, but it was there. I didn't have too many problems with it. That doesn't really make me want to show it at Late Night. Doesn't make me think it's a Cinemoddity. Genisys was bad. Genisys was not enjoyable. And that does not make me want to watch it late at night. And it does not make it a cinemoddity for me as well. I think because, especially thinking about this whole month and this whole series of why why I was torn on cinemoddities at the beginning of it because of those first 3 movies and those kind of concepts, these don't fit in the same vein for me. And I'm going to say no to all 4 for that reason.
All right. This is going to be a weird, it's not a split. It's like a fraction. It's a quarter. Okay. I agree with you on Salvation. Salvation is neither a cinemoddity or a late night movie.
Okay.
Genisys would hurt as a late night movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I get a headache if I watch this at night. I am going to give Genisys a cinemoddity though.
Oh, okay.
Because of how it's the most, definable, or I guess the best example of the chocolate pretzel dilemma. Of just connecting all these things that work in an immediate sense, yet do not work in a broad picture.
Okay.
And this movie is so weird between the fact that the story is grounded so much in Terminator, in the films, yet every other aspect of the movie is no, we're different from those other 4 films.
Yeah.
Ignore those other 4 films, but you better have seen them to understand a single thing that happened in this movie.
Okay, fair. I understand where you're coming from. Absolutely.
But yes, Salvation is it's an action adventure movie with Terminator characters in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good. It's a neat movie. Late night movie. No, I don't think so. Genisys, no, definitely not a late night movie. But as a cinemoddity, I'd say it gets a yes from me.
Okay, right on. I do have some things to pitch for the restaurant, but I wanted to ask you before we dive into snacks. Is there any food in Genisys? After I watched the movie, I was like, did they ever eat? Did they ever mention food? Is there no mention of food in the entire movie of Genisys? Did anything stand out to you?
I don't think so. Okay, I've only seen Genisys the least of all these movies, so I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on anything. Literally, Kylo Reese goes into battle in 2029, gets into this time machine that hurts him physically to get him to 1984, spends maybe a few hours in 1984, and then what? They're in another they need to eat, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe something in the hospital.
Maybe
that's the
closest thing we might get, but that was one thing where I was like, I can't think of any foods for Genisys, but don't worry, for Salvation, I had a great idea. Going right along the lines of the Jaeger, so the Jaeger Terminator that we talked about before, we didn't mention that the Jaeger Terminator is fighting Sam Worthington at one point, and he gets flown from the Jaeger and skips on water like a rock. He's a skipping stone for all intents and purposes. So I was thinking, let's add in Cinemoddities, or maybe a joint thing between the adults and the kids, some type of slide or a water park ride that would skip you like a stone when you're done riding it. Yeah, go for it.
Hold on a second. Cinemoddities water park.
Yes, there you go. And this ride that I'm pitching is gonna shoot you so fast that you're gonna skip across the water when you hit it.
Oh my god, folks. We now have a water park. We've just opened up a whole nother venture. We have Cinemoddities. We have Cinemoddities. Now we have a water park in the middle of downtown Manhattan.
Yes.
Oh, it's great. Oh, man.
Then the actual snack I was thinking of also relates to the Jaeger because, of course, in Salvation, they show up at the 7-Eleven or the gas station that's dilapidated with all the other people. And they're like, you have to leave. This is our place, And the older woman is like, no, we're going to feed them and then they can leave. And she just pulls out a basket of carrots.
Yeah.
And there's just a basket, a wicker basket full of carrots. And as soon as they start eating them, there's that shot where everybody's like, this is the guy's like, you're stupid. This is not your decision to make. And then everybody gets lifted away by the Jaeger. So I was thinking maybe this ties into the water park where if you order the basket full of carrots at the restaurant, the Jaeger comes and picks you up and puts you in the water park. Like it's oh God. You remember that old, like, it's the second season of like the Batman the animated series. It's the episode where the Riddler gets introduced and Batman and Robin get caught in this huge fucking maze, and there's just this hand, like a solid gold hand, just flies around the maze, and it'll pick you up at random and drop you somewhere else. It's like the difficulty of the maze is that you can go where you want, but you have to avoid this hand because it's gonna fuck up your progress. That's the Jaeger for our restaurant. Like you're like, okay, I'm getting on the A tram to the D2 tram to the F tram to get to the Vox Lux Cinematronics. but the Jaeger comes and picks you up on the D2 tram and you get transported to the water park.
My word. Oh, that's the hand of fate. When you make a mistake, it picks you up and takes you to another part of the maze.
Oh my God, it's good. That's good. I love it.
But that was it.
The
Jaeger was everything I had for snacks.
Well,
Genisys blew me away.
I want to point out that, like, you're right. The carrots are hysterical. So I always want, because the thing about though is that it's not filled with carrots. There is one carrot because Star is eating like one carrot.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah,
but you can hear a crinkling sound on the audio, and Kyle Reese has like some sort of like plastic wrapper in his hand.
Oh, okay.
So it's some sort of like processed, like, I don't know, like a Twinkie or some form of like convenience store, like snack cake or something.
Yep.
But of course we're going to have laser tag for all these. Terminator Salvation laser tag is pretty explanatory. It's going to be from the movie. The Terminator Genisys one's just like you go to plug it in, like it's all broken, nothing makes sense. Or actually, what it is that you have to drive a Terminator truck to the front lines of Skynet and you die immediately because that doesn't make any sense.
It's the shortest version of the laser park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like it's like the Kobayashi Maru of Star Trek. It's like you're never going to win. It's a matter of how you lose. But for snack meal item, unfortunately, like Rob, I cannot outdo the ambitiousness of the Cinemoddities water park. But this is a good one though. This is an item for the menu, and what it is it's the title of the item is 2-day-old coyote. And then the little description says, beats 3-day-old coyote.
Okay, there you go. I like that. I like that.
Keeping it simple.
Who knows what coyote tastes like, right?
Yeah. And definitely, I think we all would prefer 2-day coyote over 3-day coyote, right?
I guess. Until I know more about coyote, I'll take the fresher coyote.
Good. That's all that matters.
Who knows? Coyote might get, vintage, like it's better with age. I'm also now interested in the idea of like, what if coyote meat is the only meat that gets better with age? So it's basically like a Slim Jim, like you don't even
like a
refrigerate it. Yeah. But that's not fleshed out fully, but that's an interesting idea. Like, what would be better, 2 or 3-day-old coyote?
Is that a dog?
It's a coyote.
Not gonna bite me, right?
No. Coyotes are blessed creatures. If you ever find yourself alone with a coyote, you don't run away. You follow it. See where he takes you. People think we own this land. The streets, yards and hills, houses and the caves. Everything belongs to the coyotes. They're just letting us use it. Where are we? You know I can't tell you that.
I do want to point out that like there is a plot point in Terminator Salvation of like a bunch of like degenerates, slobs, or like, oh, what you got there, honey? Like they're rubbing their belly buttons, and it's like, oh, like antibiotics are hard to come by in these parts. Moon Bloodgood's like, oh, guys, we're all on the same team, and we go from we want your antibiotics to rape.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There is
like
no
0 to 60.
Yeah, it's like, why is this in a Terminator movie?
Yeah,
this is so strange. Like, you know what we give crap about Genisys? There's not like Genisys has a lot of weird things going on in it because like it doesn't make sense. But there's nothing just as blatantly strange as having like an attempted rape over antibiotics in your Terminator film.
Definitely, yeah. It was like a scene from, although any of those post-apocalyptic movies, you know, like random bandits show up and want to steal something from you, and it's like, okay, I get what you're going for, but you didn't need to take that turn.
And there's a woman there, so clearly that's just the natural thing you do in the post-apocalyptic. You see a woman, it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah,
it's like, it's such a weird thing. Like, I don't get like why that has to be in the movie, and then like Sam Worthington's about to like stab a guy with a screwdriver.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so weird. Maybe that's another piece of Cinemoddities merchandise. We give people screwdrivers.
Ooh.
Protect yourselves.
Need something to chip away the dried stuff on the jizzles.
We're still running with that joke, folks. It's been a month, but we're still running with it. Oh my god. But yeah, that's Terminator, right?
Yeah, I think that's all I had for sure. I guess from here, everybody knows what we're doing next. Monstober. We start with the non-Monstober of Goosebumps. So Look forward to that next week. And we will return at the end of Monstober if we can survive it. We're going to get Terminator Dark Fate, right? As long as it doesn't get delayed or whatever might happen.
Or if it's so bad that we decide to skip it. Because there's a very real possibility, folks, that depending on what I'm hearing about this might be even worse than Genisys.
I don't know, Zach. It's directed by Tim Miller, and he directed Deadpool, and wasn't that a great movie that will always stand the test of time?
And Jimmy C says this is the best Terminator film ever made that wasn't Terminator Genisys or Terminator 1 or 2. Rob, it's only the 4th best Terminator film ever made.
Oh God!
But
we'll see.
We have one final question to resolve. At the beginning of this series, I asked Rob if he could go into the past or go into the future. Which would he choose? So
I didn't know if you were going to bring this up. I thought we might save this for Dark Fate, but given what we just said,
that's what I was going to ask. I was about to say, should we save it and keep it ambiguous? Should we keep that an open-ended question? Much like the open-ended questions of Terminator Salvation and Genisys. So if we don't continue the series, it will be a lost answer to time, or should we be nice to our audience and wrap it up?
I have for an unknown reason, some weird faith that we will finish the Terminator series. I don't know why, because I've read a lot of the same stuff Zack has, or at least in terms of the movie. So I think that we should hold it off. It might become a lost question, but I think it's one that I like enough that if it does become lost, we will be able to relate it elsewhere. Because the other part of my answer to the question you just asked me, should we hold it off or discuss it now, Zach, is I think you're going to roll your eyes at this. It's going to take me some time to discuss my answer to this now. So I was even tempted to say with Terminator Genisys, since I didn't have any snacks, we would do that. But I think we should hold off. Maybe the next Terminator will give me some insight to it. But it's going to involve Terminators, observers, strangers. Like, I'm pulling from D. Norris is involved in my answer.
Good.
So let's say if it becomes a lost question, maybe it'll end up as a bonus episode because I just happened to yell at Zach about it while he's recording one day.
See, folks, even more of an incentive not to record that episode. However, that'd be a first for Cinemoddities, ending a series before it's supposed to.
Oh, that's good. That's funny.
An entire episode is indeterminate.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, if we don't get to it, it'll definitely, come up in the 2-year extravaganza. So,
no, it definitely will. So with that being said, how are we going to wrap up this week's show?
I think there's no point in reusing the Terminator themes from Salvation or Genisys because they themselves are reusing the Terminator theme that we've played with in the appropriate ways for 1, 2, and 3. So this is exactly why I think we should have some Bailout in reverse. Get some good techno Christian Bale yelling at us backwards. Maybe we'll pick up a satanic message.
We'll summon Christian Bale to the Cinemoddities restaurant.
Our professional relationship is over. once I figure out how to get out of here.